The tray slipped. Crystal exploded across marble. 300 guests turned to stare at the girl in the cheap black uniform, champagne soaking her shoes, her manager already walking toward her with murder in his eyes. She was fired before the glass stopped ringing. But across the ballroom, behind the bar, a man in a charcoal suit watched her like he'd been waiting his whole life for this exact moment to break her open. And Aria Vale didn't know yet that losing everything tonight was the smallest price she'd pay. If you make it to the end of this story, hit that like button and drop the city you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far Aria's story travels tonight. Stay with me. The radiator in apartment 4B had been dead for 11 days. Aria Vale knew because she'd been counting. She counted a lot of things now. The number of pills left in her mother's orange bottle, 9. The number of days until the eviction notice became an eviction, 6. The number of hours she'd slept this week. She'd stopped counting that one when the math got embarrassing. She pulled the blanket higher around her mother's shoulders and tried not to look at the space heater in the corner. It was the kind of thing that came with warnings printed in red. Don't leave unattended. Don't run more than 4 hours. Don't. She ran it anyway. You couldn't tell a woman with stage 3 lymphoma that she had to be cold because the landlord was a cheap bastard and the super didn't answer his phone. Baby. Her mother's voice was paper. You're going to be late. I'm not late. You're going to be late because you're fussing. Aria smiled without meaning to. Even dying, Elena Vale could read her daughter like a receipt. I'm not fussing. I'm tucking. Same thing when you do it. Aria leaned down and kissed her mother's forehead. It was too warm. It had been too warm for 3 days, and Aria had not called the doctor because the doctor cost money, and money was a thing that happened to other people now. I'll be home by 3, she said. Mrs. Petrova's coming at 8. Don't give her a hard time. I never give anyone a hard time. You gave the mailman a hard time yesterday. He deserved it. He's been crushing my magazines for a year. Aria laughed, and the laugh hurt somewhere she couldn't name. She turned off the bedroom light and stood in the doorway for a second longer than she needed to, the way you do when you're not sure which goodbye is going to be the last one. Then she grabbed her bag and ran. Well, the subway was late. Of course it was. She stood on the platform in her cheap black uniform, polyester blouse, polyester skirt, shoes that had started leaking 2 weeks ago and were now leaking more, and watched a rat the size of a house cat drag a slice of pizza between the tracks. She thought dimly that the rat was probably eating better than she was. She'd had a banana at noon. That was lunch. That was also dinner. A man in a wool coat shoved past her without apologizing, and she swallowed the things she wanted to say because you didn't say things like that in uniform. Uniforms made you quiet. Uniforms made you invisible. That was half the job. The other half was pretending you liked being invisible. The train finally came. She got a seat between 2 men who both smelled like different versions of wrong and closed her eyes. 3 jobs. That was the count this month. The diner from 5 a.m. to 11. The dry cleaners from noon to 4. And then this. Meridian Catering, the gig that paid the best because it paid in cash and didn't ask questions. $80 a night, sometimes $100 if there was a tip pool. She'd worked 41 galas in 8 months. She could set a table of 12 in under 6 minutes. She could fold a napkin into a rose, a swan, a lily, a fan. She could smile at a man grabbing her wrist and say, "Of course, sir," right away without breaking anything on the tray. 41 galas, $80 a night. And her mother's hospital bills were still a number that looked made up. $247,000. She'd stopped being able to say it out loud. The Astor was the kind of hotel that made a girl like Aria feel like she was tracking mud across someone else's life just by breathing in the lobby. Gold ceilings, cream marble, chandeliers that probably cost more than the apartment building she lived in. She slipped in through the service entrance with the rest of the catering staff, a side door behind a dumpster that smelled like wet cardboard, and she thought, not for the first time, how funny it was that the world had 2 doors for the same building. One for the people who mattered, one for the people who cleaned up after them. Vale, you're late. Marco was already yelling, which meant he was already drunk, which meant the night was going to be long. I'm 4 minutes early. You're 4 minutes later than I wanted you here. Same thing. She didn't argue. You didn't argue with Marco. Marco had a cousin at immigration and a rotating cast of girls who needed the shifts more than they needed their dignity, and he liked reminding everyone of that fact at least twice a night. Ballroom B, he snapped. Wine glasses on 12 through 20. Bread service. Don't touch the oysters. Those are Jessica's. And for God's sake, fix your hair. You look like you slept under a bridge. She'd slept on her mother's couch. Close enough. She tied her hair back tighter, straightened the uniform, and pushed through the swinging kitchen doors into the ballroom. And for a second, just one, she forgot how tired she was. The room was beautiful. Not in a way she could afford to care about, but in a way that hit you in the chest whether you liked it or not. 300 round tables draped in bone-white linen. Centerpieces of white peonies and black orchids, the kind that didn't grow anywhere you could find. A string quartet tuning softly near the front. The cellist's bow moving like she was petting something alive. Waiters in tuxedos gliding in slow circles. Men in watches that cost more than Aria's life. It was a Winterfield charity gala. That's what the placard near the door said. Winterfield Foundation, an evening for the future. Aria had poured drinks at 3 Winterfield events this year, and she still had no idea what the foundation actually did. She was pretty sure nobody else did either. You didn't come to things like this because you cared. You came because other people would see you caring. She moved to table 14 and started setting glasses. That's when she saw him. He was behind the bar. Not the main one, the secondary one, in the far corner, the one the serious drinkers drifted toward when they got tired of the crowd. He was tall. That was the first thing. Tall and still, in a way that most tall men weren't. Most tall men moved like they were apologizing for the height. This one moved like the height was a thing other people had to deal with. Charcoal suit, black shirt, no tie. His sleeves were rolled twice, and she could see a watch that was too nice for a bartender, and forearms that were too scarred for a man who made drinks for a living. He was pouring something amber into a crystal glass, and he wasn't looking at the drink. He was looking at her, directly at her. Across a room of 300 people, past the chandeliers and the peonies and the string quartet, straight at a girl setting wine glasses at table 14. Aria looked away first. Of course she did. You didn't hold eye contact with men in rooms like this. That was rule 1. That was the whole job. Don't be seen, don't be remembered, don't exist past the tray in your hands. But when she glanced back up 30 seconds later, he was still watching. Not in the way men usually watched. Not lazy. Not hungry. Not appraising, the way the guy at table 9 had appraised her last month before sliding a business card into her apron with a hotel room number on the back. This was something else. Something patient. Something that felt less like being looked at and more like being recognized, which was a word she didn't have a reason for. She'd never seen him before in her life. Vale! Marco, hissing from the doorway. Bread! She snapped back into her body. Set the last glass. Moved. For the next hour, she didn't look at the bar. This was a discipline she'd gotten good at. You could go a whole night at a gala without ever once letting your eyes land on the thing you wanted to look at. It was how she survived. How all of them survived. Men grabbed. Women complained. Someone's grandmother would ask her, tonight probably, if she was Filipino or Mexican, because she was clearly something. And Aria would smile and say, I'm from Queens, ma'am. And the woman would laugh like Aria had told a joke. She poured water. She cleared bread plates. She refilled the butter ramekins between courses. And when a man at table 7 snapped his fingers at her without making eye contact, she came anyway, because that was the job, and she said yes, sir, in the voice she'd trained herself to use, the one with no texture in it. She was efficient. She was invisible. She was good at this. And every time she had to cross the ballroom, she felt him watching. The second time he caught her eye, she almost dropped a bread basket. She was carrying it past the bar. Not to the bar. Past it. And he was handing a glass of whiskey to a man in a tuxedo. And just as Aria stepped into the edge of his field of vision, he looked up. Not at the customer. At her. And he smiled. It was not a big smile. It was barely a smile at all. Just a shift at the corner of his mouth, like the smile was something private he'd decided to share with her for exactly 1 second. The kind of smile a man gives when he's in on a joke you don't know you're telling. Her stomach did something stupid. She kept walking, didn't look back. Got to table 11, set the basket down, remembered to breathe. Get it together, Vale. He's He's a bartender. You're a waitress. This is a Tuesday. It was around 10:15 when Marco found her in the kitchen and told her she was being moved to the bar. Jessica's drunk, he said, which was Marco's way of saying Jessica had thrown up in a supply closet. I need you on glass pickup at the back bar. In and out. In and out. Don't chat. You hear me, Vale? Don't chat. I don't chat. You better not. She took a breath she didn't let him see, pushed through the doors, and walked to the bar she'd been trying not to walk to all night. He watched her the whole way. She stepped behind the service counter, the narrow lane between the bar itself and the wall, where servers were allowed and guests weren't, and started stacking empty glasses onto her tray without looking at him. You're new, he said. His voice was low, warmer than she'd expected. It had something in it, not an accent exactly, but a texture, something that had lived in more than one country. I'm not, she said. You just haven't seen me. I've seen you. She glanced up before she could stop herself. Up close, he was worse. Or better, she couldn't tell. His eyes were the color of something she couldn't name. Gray, but not the gray of a sky. The gray of a thing that had been cooled deliberately. There was a scar at the edge of his jaw, thin and old, the kind you got from something sharp and fast. He had the hands of a man who'd worked somewhere, and he was looking at her like the question wasn't who are you, but how long until you admit it. I've never worked this event before, she said. I know. Then what do you mean you've seen me? He finished polishing a glass and set it down. I saw you at the Mercer benefit in March. You were on the balcony. You were crying. Her hand stopped moving. She had been on that balcony. She'd stepped out for a cigarette she couldn't afford, and she'd cried for exactly 2 minutes because the hospital had called about her mother's second biopsy. And then she'd wiped her face and gone back inside and finished the shift. She had not been crying where anyone could see her. She'd picked that balcony because it had been dark and empty. You're mistaken, she said. No, I wasn't crying. Okay, he said it without arguing, which was worse than arguing. It was the okay of a man who didn't need her to agree. She stacked faster. The tray wobbled. He reached out, casually, without asking, and steadied it with one finger against the edge. Easy, he said. I've got it. I know you do. I'm just helping. I didn't ask for help. I've noticed. She looked up again, and this time she held it. She didn't know why. Something in her had gone loose. She hadn't eaten since noon, and her mother was warm with fever in a cold apartment, and the world was about to take another piece off her. She could feel it coming, the way you feel weather. And here was this man, this stranger, looking at her like she was a thing worth looking at, and she was tired. She was so tired. What's your name? She said. It wasn't a question. It came out flat. Lucien. Lucien what? Just Lucien for now. That's not an answer. It's the one I'm giving you. She laughed. One short, disbelieving sound. Okay, just Lucien, I have to go. Aria. She stopped. She had not told him her name. She hadn't introduced herself. She wasn't wearing a name tag. Marco had called her Vale across a ballroom, and maybe he'd heard it if he'd been listening for it. But she knew, the way you know a thing in your stomach before you know it in your head, that he hadn't heard it from Marco. How do you know my name? He held her eyes. He didn't answer. Lucien, how do you know my name? I'll tell you sometime, he said. Not tonight. She almost walked. She almost left the tray on the bar and walked out the service entrance and went home and called Marco tomorrow and said she'd gotten sick. She almost did. Instead, she did something she would not be able to explain to herself for weeks. Kiss me, she said. It came out of her mouth before she understood it was coming. It was not flirting. She was not a woman who flirted with strangers at work. She was not, in any meaningful sense, a woman who had been kissed in the last 14 months, because there had not been time for kissing. There had been hospitals and night shifts, and a mother who needed to be turned every 2 hours. But she said it. She said it because she was tired, and he was looking at her like she was real, and she wanted, just for 1 second, to do something reckless, something that belonged to her, something nobody was going to take. He didn't blink. He didn't smile. He set down the rag in his hand. He walked around the edge of the bar. the 3 steps it took to come into her narrow service lane. He stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head up. He smelled like cedar and something darker, something she didn't have a word for. "Are you sure?" he said. She was not sure. She was the opposite of sure. "Yes." He cupped the side of her face with one hand. His palm was warm and steady, and the calluses on it caught at her skin in a way that made her forget, briefly, how to stand. And then he kissed her. She would think about this later, many times, for years. It was not a movie kiss. It was not soft or slow or careful. It was the kiss of a man who had apparently decided a very long time ago how he was going to kiss her, and was now, simply, doing it. His mouth was firm. His other hand came to rest at the small of her back, not pulling her closer, just there, steadying like she was something he'd been asked to hold and was not going to drop. She heard herself make a small sound against his mouth, embarrassing, unplanned, and his thumb traced once along her jaw as if to say, "It's okay. It's okay." I heard it. It lasted maybe 4 seconds. When he pulled back, her knees were the knees of a stranger. "Okay," she whispered. She didn't know what she was agreeing to. "Aria Vale." Marco's voice cracked across the room like a whip. She jerked back from Lucien. The tray she'd been holding tilted. 2 empty glasses slid off the edge and hit the marble and exploded. She saw it happen in slow motion and fast motion at the same time. The crystal going white in the air. The champagne flute that hadn't actually been empty, half an inch of leftover wine, arcing in a long amber spray across the front of a woman in a silver dress standing 2 feet away. The woman shrieked. The whole nearest section of the ballroom turned. Marco was already moving. His face was the color of something cooked too long. The catering manager was behind him. And behind the catering manager, Aria understood this with a clarity that was almost funny, was the event coordinator from Winterfield herself, a thin woman in navy whose entire job tonight was making sure girls like Aria didn't exist loudly. "You," Marco said, pointing at her like she was a dog. "Out, now." "Marco, it was I said out." The woman in silver was screaming about her dress. Someone was already on their knees picking up glass. A manager was apologizing in 6 directions at once. Aria's face was wet, and she didn't remember when she'd started crying. "I need this job," she said. Quiet. Only Marco could hear. "Marco, please. You know what's going on with my mom. I need—" "You should have thought about that before you were flirting with the bar staff like a little—" "Enough." Lucien's voice. Calm. Quiet. But the word cut through Marco's tirade like a wire through cheese. Marco stopped mid-sentence. He turned. He saw who had spoken. And something extraordinary happened to Marco's face. Aria had never, in 8 months of working catering, seen Marco afraid. Marco was the scariest thing in every room Marco entered. That was Marco's whole personality. It was how he got away with what he got away with. Marco's face went gray. Mr. Voss, he said. I didn't know you were... I didn't see you at... Apologize to her. Sir? The girl. Apologize. You called her a name. I want to hear you take it back. Marco's throat worked. I'm sorry, Vale. I'm sorry. I was out of line. Now get out of my sight, Lucien said, still quiet, still calm, before I have a conversation with your employer that you will not survive. Marco got. The woman in the silver dress was still yelling. The catering manager was still apologizing. A busboy had appeared from somewhere and was sweeping up the glass. Aria stood in the middle of it, crying without sound, clutching her empty tray against her chest like a shield. Lucien turned to her. Come with me. I have to... You don't have this job anymore, he said, not unkindly. You haven't had it for the last 90 seconds. Come with me. He took her through the kitchen, past the startled line cooks, past a pastry chef who said sir in a voice like she was praying, and out a back hallway she hadn't known existed. It ended at a small private elevator with no buttons, just a black panel he pressed his thumb to. The doors opened. Where are we going? Aria said. Her voice had come back, barely. Upstairs. I'm not going upstairs with you. Okay? He held the elevator open. I'm not. I heard you. Then close the door. He closed the door. They stood in the hallway. She was still crying. She was still holding the tray. She was still in a cheap polyester uniform with champagne on her shoes and her life, her mother, her rent, her apartment, the 9 pills left in the orange bottle, was all still happening somewhere outside this hallway, and she had just lost the job that was keeping her from drowning. And this man, the stranger who had kissed her 60 seconds ago, was looking at her with something that was not pity. That was the thing. It was not pity. Pity she could have walked away from. Pity she was used to. Pity was the thing the doctor did with his mouth when he said aggressive in stage 3 and options. Pity was what the caseworker at the hospital did when she handed Aria the bill and said there may be some programs. This wasn't pity. This was the look of a man who had seen her on a balcony 8 months ago and had, apparently, remembered. "Who are you?" she said. "I'm someone who'd like to offer you a job." "You don't know me. I know enough." "You don't know anything. I know your mother is dying," he said. "I know her name is Elena. I know she worked at St. Jude's Elementary as a janitor for 22 years before she got sick. I know her oncologist is Dr. Rashid at Mount Sinai, and he is, for what it's worth, the best in the city for what she has. I know you have $247,000 in medical debt across 4 hospitals, and a collection agency called Bremen and Style, who have started calling you from numbers with New Jersey area codes because they think you won't answer the New York ones anymore. I know your rent on 142nd is $1,400 a month, you're behind by 2, and your super is named Milo, and he's stealing from you. I know you've been working 3 jobs. I know you haven't slept more than 5 hours in any night this month. I know you had a banana for lunch." She couldn't speak. "I know," he said quieter, "that you stood on a balcony in March and cried for exactly 2 minutes and then wiped your face and went back to work because you have never, once, allowed yourself to fall apart where someone might see you. Stop." "Okay. Stop. Stop." "I've stopped." Her back was against the hallway wall. She didn't remember putting it there. Her hands were shaking so hard the tray was rattling, and she set it down on the floor because she didn't trust herself to hold it. "Are you a cop?" she whispered. "No." Are you going to hurt me?" He closed his eyes for 1 full second. When he opened them, there was something in his face she would think about for a long time afterward. "Aria," he said. "No." "Then what are you?" "I'm someone who's been watching you for a while, and I have a proposal for you. And you can say no, and I'll put you in a car tonight that will take you home, and I will pay this month's rent on 142nd, and I will never contact you again, and you can go back to your life. That is an option. I want you to know that is a real option." "And the other option?" 30 days, he said. "You work for me. 30 days. At the end of 30 days, every dollar of your mother's debt is gone. Dr. Rashid's care continues uninterrupted. She gets moved into a facility I own uptown with a private nurse the week after next. You get paid beyond that. Cash. A lot of it. And at the end of 30 days, if you want to walk away, you walk." She stared at him. What would I be doing?" "What you already do, serving at events. That's it. That's mostly it, Lucien." He didn't answer. "Lucien, what's the rest of it?" He looked at her for a long time. The hallway was quiet. Somewhere, far away, she could hear the string quartet starting up again. They were playing something slow, something from a movie, maybe. She couldn't place it. "You listen," he said finally. "You watch. You remember. You tell me what you saw, that's all." "Watch who?" "The men at the tables, the women with them, the people they talk to when they think no one's listening. Nobody notices a girl in a uniform carrying a tray. You've already figured that out. I'm just asking you to notice back." "Why?" "Because I need to, and because I can't, and because you already do it. You already see everything, Aria. I've watched you do it. You've just never had a reason to remember. That's not legal. It's not illegal either, mostly. Mostly. I'm not going to lie to you. That's the one thing I'm not going to do. Not tonight. Not ever. If you say yes." She pressed her palms flat against the wall behind her to keep from sliding down it. "Who are you?" "My name is Lucien Voss." "That's not what I asked." He almost smiled. "I know." "What are you?" "I'm a man," he said slowly, "who owns several things in this city. Some of them have my name on the paperwork and some of them don't. I have enemies. I have also, occasionally, friends. Tonight, at this event, there are 3 people in that ballroom whose conversations I would pay a great deal of money to hear. None of them will speak freely in front of anyone they recognize. All of them will speak freely in front of a waitress. So I'm a spy. You're a server with a very good memory who happens to work for me. And you picked me. Yes. Why me? He looked at her for a very long moment. His eyes were tired. She hadn't noticed before, but they were. He was tired, the way she was tired, in some deep place that went past sleep. Because I've been watching rooms like this my whole life, he said, and I have never once seen anyone look as invisible as you do. And then a woman in a silver dress screamed at you, and you didn't cry until you were already out of her line of sight. And I thought, that's the one. That's the girl. She laughed. It came out broken. That is the weirdest compliment anyone has ever given me. It wasn't a compliment. I know. The hallway was quiet. She thought of her mother under a thin blanket in a cold apartment. 9 pills, 6 days. She thought of the kiss, the 4 seconds of it, the way his hand had stayed at her back like he was keeping her standing. 30 days, she said. 30 days? And if I say no right now, you really just pay my rent and go. I really do. And if I say yes, and then on day 15 I decide I want out, his jaw moved just slightly. That's harder. Why? Because by day 15 people will know your face, and I won't be able to put that back in the box. So it's all 30 or none. It's all 30 or none. She closed her eyes. She thought very clearly, for the first time in maybe a year. I don't have a choice. I never did. Lucien. Yes. Why did you kiss me? The silence was long enough that she opened her eyes again. He was looking at her. Not at her face exactly. At some point just past her face, like he was answering the question to himself before he gave it to her. Because you asked me to, he said. That's not... And because if you'd asked me to a year from now or 5 years from now, the answer would have been the same. I'd already decided. You made me decide faster. That's not an answer either. It's the one I'm giving you. For now. Isham. The car he put her in was black and smelled like leather and something cold and expensive. The driver did not speak. Aria sat in the back with her hands folded in her lap, and she watched the city go by in the window, and she did not feel anything for about 6 blocks. Then, all at once, she felt everything. She pressed both hands over her mouth and cried, silently, the way she'd learned to cry, without moving her shoulders, without making a sound the driver could hear. She cried for her mother, and for the job she'd lost, and for the kiss, and for the fact that she had said yes. She had said yes. In the hallway, with the string quartet playing something from a movie she couldn't name. She had looked at Lucien Voss and she had said, okay, and she had taken the phone he'd handed her. A new one, already set up, 1 number programmed in, and she had gotten into his car. The driver pulled up in front of her building on 142nd. She got out. Milo was in the lobby, and Milo opened his mouth to say something about the rent, and then Milo saw the black car at the curb, and whatever Milo had been about to say dried up in his throat. Aria walked past him without a word. Upstairs, her mother was asleep. Mrs. Petrova was asleep too, in the armchair. The space heater was glowing orange in the corner. Aria stood in the doorway of her mother's bedroom, and she watched Elena Vale breathe. In, out, fragile and miraculous. And she thought about a man with gray eyes who knew her oncologist's name. The phone he had given her buzzed once in her pocket. She pulled it out. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. A car will come. L. She stared at it for a long time. Then she typed back, with fingers that weren't quite steady. I don't have anything to wear. The reply came in under 10 seconds. You will. She turned the phone face down on her mother's nightstand. She pulled the blanket higher around Elena's shoulders. She kissed her mother's forehead, still too warm, and she whispered into her mother's hair the things she could not say out loud to anyone else in the world. I fixed it, Mama. I don't know what I did, but I fixed it. Elena Vale didn't wake up. Outside on 142nd Street, the black car pulled away from the curb and was gone before anyone on the block could get a good look at the plate. And in a penthouse 32 blocks south, a man named Lucian Voss stood at a window that overlooked half of Manhattan, and he watched the lights of the city the way a man watches a board he is about to move a piece across, and he did not smile. He had what he needed now. She had said yes. The phone was the first thing she saw when she opened her eyes. It was lying face down on the nightstand where she'd left it, and for a second, that soft, merciful second before the brain catches up, Aria thought it was her old phone, the cracked one, the one with the screen that only worked if you pressed the bottom left corner just right. Then she remembered. She remembered everything. The tray going, the glass, the hallway. Lucian Voss saying her mother's name like he'd known it his whole life. She turned the phone over. Car in 15 minutes. Door stays locked until you open it. L. The clock said 9:46. She sat up too fast and the room tilted, and she put a hand on the mattress to steady herself and thought, dimly, that this was what happened when you slept 4 hours on a couch after crying for one of them. Her mother's bedroom door was still closed. Mrs. Petrova was in the kitchen making tea. Aria could hear the kettle and the soft scrape of a spoon against a mug, and the old woman humming something under her breath in Russian. That sound had been the soundtrack of the last 8 months. Mrs. Petrova humming. The space heater clicking on, clicking off. Her mother's cough at 3 in the morning, which had gotten worse, and which Aria had not mentioned to the doctor because there was no point mentioning things to doctors when you could not pay for what they do about it. "Good morning, honey," Mrs. Petrova, in the doorway, holding 2 mugs. "You slept like a dead person." "What time did she wake up?" "Around 6. I gave her the pill. She ate 2 spoons of the oatmeal. I lied and told her it was 3. Mrs. Petrova smiled, all the wrinkles at her eyes folding in. "She is sleeping again now." "Thank you." "You do not have to thank me. I have told you this." "I know. So stop." Aria took the mug. Her hands were still a little unsteady, and she tried to hide it, but Mrs. Petrova had eyes on her like a bird on a window. "You came home in a big car last night," Mrs. Petrova said. I am not asking. I am telling. I saw it from the window. Milo told me it was like a president's car." Milo exaggerates. Milo exaggerates about the heat. About the car he told the truth. The old woman sipped her tea. She did not look at Aria as she said it. "Honey, are you safe?" Aria opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I don't know yet," she said. Mrs. Petrova nodded slowly, as if this was the answer she had been expecting, which it probably was. Mrs. Petrova had raised 4 children in a country Aria could not pronounce the name of correctly, and she had buried a husband in that country, and she had come to Queens at the age of 51 and worked 2 jobs for the next 30 years, and you did not lie to a woman like that. She saw through lies the way cats saw through walls. "If you need anything," the old woman said, "you knock on my door, night, day. I do not care. You knock." "I will." "Aria, I will. I promise." Mrs. Petrova set her mug down and walked to the door, and before she left, she reached out and put one papery hand against Aria's cheek. She held it there for a second. Her thumb moved once, very lightly, under Aria's eye, where the skin was tight and swollen from crying. "Whatever it is," Mrs. Petrova said quietly, "remember, your mother did not raise a fool. Remember it even when other people forget." Then she was gone. Aria stood in the kitchen with the tea going cold in her hands, and she stared at the wall, and she didn't cry, because she had cried all her crying last night, and also because there was no time. She had 11 minutes, possibly 10. She went into the bathroom and looked in the mirror and did not recognize the woman looking back. The car was the same one as last night. She knew because of the driver. The same silent man in a black suit, the same expression of professional invisibility, the same way he opened the back door without making eye contact. She climbed in. The seat was warm. Somebody had set a paper cup of coffee in the cup holder, black, no sugar, exactly how she took it. She hadn't told anyone she took her coffee that way. The car pulled away from the curb. "Where are we going?" she said. "Miss Vale, I'm not at liberty to say." "Okay?" Mr. Voss will meet you. Okay. She drank the coffee. She watched the city go by. It was a gray morning, the kind where the light looked borrowed, and the buildings along the East River were the color of wet cardboard. And she thought about the fact that she had put on the best blouse she owned. A cream-colored thing from 3 jobs ago, with a pulled thread at the cuff she'd tried to trim off with kitchen scissors. And she thought about Lucien's text from last night. You will. Like clothes were nothing. Like clothes were a problem she'd already forgotten having. The car stopped in front of a building she had walked past 100 times without seeing. It was on a side street in Tribeca, 4 stories of cast iron, the windows tall and narrow, no sign, no number, just a black door that looked like it weighed more than a person. The driver came around and opened her door. He did not say goodbye. A woman was waiting on the sidewalk. She was in her 50s, maybe 60s, with iron gray hair cut short and the kind of posture that came from 40 years of making other people stand up straight. She wore a charcoal suit, no jewelry except a small gold watch. She looked at Aria the way a tailor looks at a bolt of fabric, not unkindly, just taking the measure. Miss Vale, I'm Miriam. Come with me, please. I'm supposed to meet Lucien, but you are. After. Miriam held the heavy black door open. Come. Inside was not what Aria had expected. She didn't know what she had expected. Some kind of warehouse, maybe, with men in leather jackets standing around a desk. This wasn't that. It was a townhouse, a very, very old one. The floors were wide pine boards, dark with a century of polish. A staircase curled up from the entryway, the banister carved in black. The air smelled like cedar and old paper. There were no men at all. There was only Miriam and a woman with a clothing rack on wheels, and another woman kneeling on the floor sorting shoes by size. This is Nadia, Miriam said, indicating the woman at the rack. And that's Paulette, with the shoes. You'll need black, navy, and cream for days. Something formal for evenings. We'll see what fits. We have about 90 minutes before you meet Mr. Voss and another 3 hours after that before your first assignment, so we move quickly. Are you hungry? Yes. Good. Miriam turned to a young man who had appeared from some hallway Aria had not noticed. Thomas. An egg sandwich from Dominic's. Tea. Not coffee. She's had enough coffee. Her hands are shaking. Go. He went. Miss Vale, remove your blouse, please. Aria stared at her. Nadia needs to measure you. We can do it over the blouse if you prefer, but it will be less accurate. I'm sorry. Can I just take a breath, sweetheart? Miriam's voice softened by exactly 1 degree. I know. Everyone looks like that the first day. Come. Sit. Eat first. We'll measure after. Aria sat on a velvet bench she hadn't seen. Her legs were doing something strange. Miriam sat next to her, not close, not far, and did not say anything for a full minute. From somewhere in the building, Aria could hear a clock ticking, a real one, the kind with weights. What is this place? Aria said. It's a house Mr. Voss uses when he has things to do quietly. Are you his assistant? Something like that. For how long? 22 years next April. Aria looked at her. You've worked for him 22 years. I worked for his father first. Before that, his grandfather, briefly, at the end. Miriam folded her hands in her lap. Her fingers were long and knobby and strong. I have known Mr. Voss since he was 11 years old, since before he was anyone. What is he? He is a complicated man, Miss Vale, and I am not in the business of describing him for other people. You'll come to your own conclusions. I'll say only this. In 22 years, I have seen him do many things I did not agree with. I have never, one time, seen him break a promise to a woman who was relying on him. Not once. Remember that if you forget everything else. Aria swallowed. Why are you telling me that? Because you're about to be asked to trust him, and you're not going to want to. And you shouldn't entirely. But if the part of you that decides you should run tonight wins, and you act on it, I don't want you to run because of the wrong reason. The sandwich came. Aria ate it too fast. Nadia measured her. Shoulders, bust, waist, hips, inseam, the length of her arms, the distance from the base of her throat to the top of her sternum. Paulette brought 4 pairs of shoes, and Aria put on each one and walked across the room, and Paulette watched her feet and not her face. 7.5, Paulette said. Narrow heel. Black, said Miriam. Something she can stand in for 6 hours. Nothing louder than a whisper when she walks. Understood. The clothing rack rolled forward. Aria stood in the middle of the room in a slip that wasn't hers, and she let women she'd just met put dresses over her head and pins in her waist. And she thought, very calmly, I am a different person now. I became a different person last night, and I didn't notice. And now it's daytime, and I'm still her. When they were done, she was wearing a black dress that fit her like somebody had built it around her bones. Plain, long sleeves, a neckline that stopped exactly where it should stop. Nothing about the dress was loud. Everything about the dress was expensive. Miriam looked her over for one long second. Good, she said. Now you meet him. He was in a study on the second floor. Miriam opened the door, said Miss Vale, and closed it behind her without coming in. Lucien was at a desk. The desk was enormous and dark and covered in paper, real paper, stacks of it, and 2 laptops and a phone face down next to a glass of water. He was in another dark suit. No jacket, sleeves rolled. He looked up when she walked in, and he did not smile. Sit down, he said. Please. She sat. For a second, he just looked at her. Not in the way he had last night. There was nothing in his face now that suggested he had ever touched her. He was a man at a desk. She was a woman across from him. It was a meeting. How did you sleep? He said. I didn't. I expected that. He slid a folder across to her. Don't open it yet. First, your mother. What about her? Dr. Rashid will call you by noon today. He will tell you there has been an adjustment to her care. He will tell you that Mount Sinai has received a charitable grant earmarked for lymphoma patients in her bracket. He will not use the word anonymous. He will act as though this is a bureaucratic outcome. It isn't. Do not ask him questions about it. He doesn't have the answers. Okay. Next Tuesday, a private ambulance will move her from your apartment to a facility on East 72nd. The facility is called Ashgrove. It is mine. Her nurse's name will be Camille. Camille speaks 4 languages, one of which is the dialect of Portuguese your mother's parents spoke, which I thought she might enjoy hearing. Your mother will have a window. She will have a garden she can see from the window. Her meals will be prepared by a kitchen that answers to the facility's dietitian. You may visit her whenever you want. The only thing I ask is that when you visit, you do not discuss your work. My work? What you do for me? She doesn't need to know. She'll worry. Aria's throat closed. Can I ask a question? You can ask anything. Why are you doing this? Really? Don't tell me it's because I'm invisible. Don't tell me it's the balcony. I was invisible on that balcony too. There are 1,000 girls in this city who look like me and cry where nobody sees them. Why me? He watched her for a long moment. His eyes, in the gray light from the window, were the color of slate after rain. Because 3 months ago, he said, a man I used to trust tried to have me killed. He failed. He's still out there. I know who he is, but I cannot prove it, because the evidence I need is inside rooms I cannot walk into without being recognized. So I have been looking for 3 months for a person who can walk into those rooms and come back out. A person nobody in my world would suspect, because a person nobody in my world would suspect is, by definition, not in my world. That is the first reason. And the second, I saw you on that balcony. That's not a reason. It's a reason for me. Lucien, Aria, listen to me. He leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. His hands were flat. I am a practical man. I did not walk up to you last night because I believed in a feeling. I walked up to you last night because I watched you for 8 months, and you passed every test I had. You remember names, you remember faces. You don't drink when you're serving. You don't flirt with men at tables, even the ones who tip you to. You cry in corners nobody looks at. You went home every night from the Mercer and from the Pierre and from the Carlisle, and you never once said a word about any of it to anyone, not even to your friend who works the bar at the St. Regis, who I had a conversation with for 15 minutes and who has no idea how much you know about the men she serves. That is the kind of woman I needed. That is the first reason. The balcony is the second. I will not separate them for you. I won't lie about it either. You had me watched. Yes. For 8 months. Yes. She sat back in her chair. She laughed. It came out thin and awful. Oh my God. I know. I think I'm going to be sick. The bathroom is through that door. Take as long as you need. She did not go to the bathroom. She stayed in the chair. She put her hands over her face and she breathed in, out, the way Dr. Rashid had once told her mother to breathe during a panic attack. And when she took her hands down, Lucien was exactly where he had been, watching her, not doing her the insult of pretending he hadn't just told her what he'd told her. Did you have me followed to work? She said. Once. To confirm your address. Did you follow me to the hospital? No. Did you listen to my phone calls? No. Did you read my texts? I know the dates of your mother's appointments. I know the numbers of the collection agencies that call you. I know the name of your super because I ran a title search on the building. I have never read a word you sent to another human being. I wouldn't. Not because I couldn't. Because I wouldn't. Why should I believe that? You shouldn't. Not yet. But I'm telling you, and the telling is a data point. And in 30 days, you will have enough other data points to decide if I was lying. I suggest you decide then. She stared at him. You are the strangest man I have ever met, she said. Yes. That wasn't a compliment. I know. She looked at the folder on the desk. Can I open it now? Yes. The folder was a life, her new life, printed and tabbed and clipped. A short biography of a woman named Aria Vale, who still lived at 142nd Street, who still had a sick mother and 2 dead grandparents, and a high school diploma from Hillcrest, because lies that were too far from the truth were harder to keep. But this Aria Vale also worked for a private hospitality firm called Ashworth Group, which handled the staffing of certain high-end events in the city. This Aria Vale had worked for Ashworth for 3 years, which matched the cover Lucien had created in the firm's system last week. This Aria Vale had references from 2 hotels she had never set foot in, and a signed confidentiality agreement with a law firm she would never meet. And then, in a second section, there was another woman. 4 men. Photographs. Biographies. Short paragraphs. The first was a real estate developer named Bennett Crane. Heavy, 62, white hair, married to his 3rd wife, who was 31. He would be at an event on Thursday at the Lennox Hotel. Aria was to remember specifically anything he said to a woman named Helena Voss, who would be in red. She was not to approach Helena. She was to listen when Helena and Crane spoke. Helena Voss, Aria said. My sister. Your sister is... You're having me spy on your own sister. My sister is sleeping with a man who tried to have me killed. I do not believe she knows he tried to have me killed. I am trying to find out. He said it flat, the way a man reads a balance sheet. Aria turned the page. The second man was a hedge fund manager. The third was a city councilman she'd actually heard of. The fourth was a priest. A priest? A former priest, currently on the board of 3 foundations, all of which launder money for the Crane organization. He will also be at the Lennox on Thursday. Lucien. Yes. I'm a waitress from Queens. You were? Yes. I don't know how to do any of this. You already know how to do all of it. You just didn't know you were doing it. I'm asking you to do it on purpose now. What if I get caught? You won't be. You don't know that. I know a great deal more than you do about the men in this folder, Aria. They do not notice women who serve them. They have spent their entire lives not noticing. It is their single most reliable quality. It has gotten 4 of my predecessors killed, and it is going to, eventually, get them killed too. Not by you. But you will have contributed. She closed the folder. What if I do get caught? He looked at her for a long moment. Then you say my name, he said. You say Lucien Voss sent me, and you do not say another word after that. And within an hour, you are somewhere no one can find you. I have people in every building in this city that matters. I will come for you, personally. Personally? Yes. Why personally? Because I told you last night I was not going to lie to you. And part of not lying is telling you what I will do if someone hurts you on my account. And what is that? I will kill him, Lucien said, or I will have him killed. I will not explain which. I'm telling you this because you need to know the scale of the agreement you are making with me. I am not the kind of employer who will let something happen to you and call it the cost of business. You need to know that. Not because it should comfort you, because you need to understand what kind of man you're working for. The room was very quiet. She thought absurdly about her mother. About the way her mother said, "Be careful, baby," every time Aria walked out the door, even when Aria was just going to the bodega. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. I think I need water. It's behind you." It was. On a small side table, a glass pitcher and a glass. She hadn't seen it. She poured. She drank. Her hand was not shaking anymore, which surprised her, and then she realized it was not shaking because something in her had gotten still. Something in her had decided. She had not known before that decisions could feel like weather, that they could move across you. "I have a question," she said. "Yes. If your sister is doing what you think she is, what happens to her?" Something flickered in his face. It was very brief. "Nothing from me," he said. "Directly, she is my sister. And indirectly, Aria. I need to know. Indirectly, the man she is with will be removed from her life. If she is part of what he is doing, she will be given a choice and an exit. If she refuses the exit, that is her choice. I will not be the one who closes the door on her, but I will not be the one who holds it open forever either." "Okay. Anything else?" "Yes." She set the water down. "About last night." He waited. "The kiss." He nodded. Was that part of any of this?" "No." "No?" "No. I don't believe you. I know. You can't kiss someone you're recruiting to be a whatever I am. You can't do that." "I know. So why did you?" His jaw moved. He looked down at his hands. They were very still on the desk. "Because you asked me," he said again. "And because I had been watching you for 8 months, and for 8 months you were a plan. And for 4 seconds last night, standing in that service lane, you were not a plan. You were a woman who had just asked me to kiss her, and I had a choice, and I made the wrong one. It was unprofessional. It will not happen again." "Okay. I mean that. I believe you." "Do you?" I'm choosing to, yes." He looked up at her. "Thank you," he said quietly. Neither of them said anything for a while. She could hear the clock, the wait clock, somewhere in the house. Outside, a car horn very far away. "Lucienne." "Yes." "If it was unprofessional, why do you keep looking at me like that?" He almost smiled. "I'm working on it." "Work harder?" "Yes, ma'am." Thursday came faster than it had any right to. In the 3 days between, she did not sleep well, but she slept better than she had in months, because the facility uptown had sent a car on Tuesday to move her mother, and the facility uptown had a window that faced a garden, and her mother had said, in the voice that had not been strong in a year, "Baby, this pillow is the softest thing I have ever touched." That was Tuesday afternoon. Aria had sat on the bed next to her mother, and she had cried into the new pillow until Camille, the nurse with the Portuguese dialect, had come in and very gently put a cup of tea on the nightstand and said, in English, "Take your time, Miss Vale, take your time. She is safe here. Take your time." She had told her mother she had gotten a new job, an event company, long hours, cash pay. Her mother had believed her because her mother was tired and because her mother wanted to believe her, and because her mother did not know the word Ashgrove had Lucien Voss's name on the deed. Thursday morning, the black car came. Miriam met her at the townhouse. She walked Aria up a flight of stairs to a room Aria had not been in before. The clothing rack was there. One dress hung on it, black, long sleeves, a neckline that would not have gotten her fired from Meridian. Simple, plain, the kind of dress a server wore when the event was formal enough to require the staff to match the guests. "The dress is the dress," Miriam said. "The earring is different." "Earring?" Miriam opened a small velvet box. Inside was a single earring, pearl. It looked to Aria like a pearl. It was round and cream-colored, and it sat in the velvet like a very small moon. "It's a microphone," Miriam said plainly. "You put it in your left ear. You can hear us. We can hear you." The range is about 2 city blocks from the van outside. When you want to speak to us, you touch the back of your ear with 2 fingers, like you're scratching. Try it. Aria touched her ear. Say something. Something. Good, it's on. We can hear you. Now, the right ear. This is a matching decorative earring. No electronics, in case anyone asks to look. You hand them the right one. You never, under any circumstances, hand them the left one. Do you understand? Yes. If something happens, if anyone grabs you, if anyone takes you somewhere you did not expect to go, if anyone says anything to you that frightens you, you say the word orchid, just orchid. Work it into a sentence. Say it to a wall if you have to. The moment that word comes out of your mouth, we are coming in. Do you understand? Orchid. Orchid. Good. Again. Orchid. Good. Miriam sat down across from her. One more thing, sweetheart. Yes. You will see him tonight. Lucien. Mr. Voss will be at the Lennox. He will be in the ballroom. He will pretend he does not know you. This is very important. You will also pretend. You will not look at him. You will not approach him. If he walks past you, you will not acknowledge him. Do you understand? Yes. Do you? Yes, Miriam. Good, because the people watching him will be watching everyone he looks at, and the people watching him will not forget a face. Aria's stomach had turned into something small and hard. Miriam. Yes, sweetheart. Am I going to be okay? The older woman looked at her for a long moment. She did not answer quickly. When she finally spoke, her voice was not warm, but it was not cold either. It was the voice of a woman who had answered this question many times before, for many women, and who had decided a long time ago to answer it honestly. Probably, she said. Aria laughed once. Probably. I will not tell you yes when the answer is probably. I owe you more than that. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, sweetheart. Thank me in a month. The Lennox ballroom was old money, the kind of old money that didn't announce itself. The floors were herringbone oak. The ceiling was painted, an actual painting, something mythological she didn't have the education to identify. The waiters were in black tie. The women were in gowns that had names. The men were in watches. Nobody was visibly drunk yet, though it was only 9, and everyone was drinking. Aria circulated with a tray of champagne. She had been circulating for 20 minutes when she saw him. Lucien. He was in a tuxedo. He was speaking to an older man with a mustache. He did not look at her. He did not look at the corner of the room she was in. He was, as Miriam had said, pretending. He was very good at pretending. She was good at it, too. She kept walking. She smiled at a woman who took a flute without thanking her. She smiled at a man who looked directly through her as if she were furniture. She refilled the tray at the bar. She did it again. At 9:41, she saw Bennett Crane. He was at the end of the room by a pair of French doors, and he was talking to a woman in red, Helena Voss. Aria had studied the photograph. She had spent 20 minutes with the photograph, but the photograph had not prepared her for the woman. Helena was 6 feet tall in heels, and she had Lucien's eyes, exactly his eyes, the same cooled gray, and she held a martini glass the way women held them in old movies, loose in the fingers, as if she had forgotten she was holding it. She was laughing at something Crane had just said. It was a real laugh, not a gala laugh. Aria noticed that, and she thought, that's data. Lucien will want to know. She really laughed. She drifted closer. Not too close. She had learned this at 41 galas, how to stand in a slow orbit, how to be available, how to let the tray do the talking. She stopped 4 feet from the French doors, and she held the tray at her hip, and she waited for someone to ask. Crane did. He took a glass without looking at her. Helena took one, and her fingers brushed Aria's, very briefly, and Helena glanced at her face, very briefly, and then looked away. Aria stepped back half a pace. She heard the word ship first. That was what caught in her ear. Crane said the ship, and Helena said Bennett, don't, and Crane laughed and said, lower. The paperwork goes through Cyprus on the 12th. The ship is out of your brother's jurisdiction by the 15th. He won't know what hit him until June, and by then, Helena's voice sharper. Bennett. A pause. Helena again, more quietly. I told you, I'm not part of that conversation. Crane. You're part of every conversation, sweetheart. You live in my house. Helena. I live in my own house. I visit yours. Crane laughed again. Aria did not move. She did not look at them. She held the tray. She counted to 10. She walked slowly away, toward the bar, toward the exit from their line of sight. And she did not touch her ear, not yet, because Miriam had said only touch the ear when no one is looking at you. And 3 people were looking at her now. A waiter signaling for a refill, a woman who had dropped her napkin, a man with a mustache. The mustache, the older man Lucien had been talking to. He was looking at her, very briefly, and Aria did not know why. She got to the service corridor. She touched her ear. The ship, she said low, barely moving her mouth. Cyprus, the 12th. Out of Voss jurisdiction by the 15th. He said he won't know what hit him until June. The sister said she's not part of the conversation. She sounded like she meant it, but she didn't leave. The voice in her ear was Miriam's, calm, clear. Well done, sweetheart. Go back. Another 40 minutes. Don't approach them again. Let the room do the work. Aria walked back in. She worked the room. She did not look at Lucien. She did not look at Helena. She did not look at Crane. She moved in the slow orbit she had spent 8 months learning, and at 10:30 she heard, in her ear, Miriam's voice saying, softly, "That's the night. Come out the way you came in." And she walked out of the ballroom and down the service corridor and past the kitchen and into the alley where the black car was waiting. She got in. The driver didn't say anything. The car pulled away. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the window, and she closed her eyes. And for the first time since yesterday morning, she let her hand shake, because they had been wanting to for hours, and she had not let them. The phone in her lap buzzed. She looked at it. She knew before she read it. You did well tonight, L. She stared at it for a long time. Outside the window, the city slid by, gray and gold and enormous, and she thought about a woman in red laughing at a real laugh, and about a man with a mustache who had looked at her too long, and about her mother in a bed with a window, asleep, probably, at this hour, in a building with Lucien Voss's name on the deed. She typed back slowly, with fingers that still weren't steady. Who was the man with the mustache? A long pause, long enough that she thought maybe he wouldn't answer, or wouldn't answer tonight. Then, why do you ask? He looked at me. Twice. Not the way the others did. Another pause. Stay in the car. I'll meet you at the house. She set the phone down on the seat beside her. She did not pick it up again. The car turned south toward Tribeca, and the rain that had been threatening all night finally started to come down, and by the time they crossed Canal Street, it was falling hard enough to blur the streetlights into long yellow smears that ran together on the glass. Lucien was already at the townhouse when the car pulled up. She could tell from the light in the second-floor window, the one that belonged to the study. It had been dark when she left, and now it wasn't, and the shadow moving across the curtain was his. The rain was coming down in sheets now, the kind of New York rain that turned the gutters into small rivers and made the cabs drive like they were angry at something. The driver didn't ask her to wait for an umbrella. She got out, and she ran the 6 steps to the door, and her hair was wet by the time she was inside. Miriam was in the entryway. He's upstairs, Miriam said. Leave the earring. Aria reached up and took the pearl out of her left ear. She set it in the small velvet box Miriam was holding open. Her fingers were cold. The box closed with a soft click. Towel, bathroom to your left. 2 minutes, then up. He's had a long night. How long? Since before yours, sweetheart. Go. She toweled her hair in a bathroom that smelled like expensive soap, and she looked at herself in the mirror, and the woman in the mirror did not look afraid. That was the thing that startled her. 48 hours ago, this same woman had cried into a pillow because the space heater had made a popping sound and she'd thought it was going to catch fire. Tonight, this same woman had stood 4 feet from a man who trafficked in ships and stolen paperwork, and she had not sweated through her dress. She wondered when the fear would come. She thought, probably tomorrow. Probably when the adrenaline burned off. Probably at 3 in the morning. She had time. She climbed the stairs. Dumb. The study door was open this time. He was at the window, not the desk. His back was to her. The jacket of his tuxedo was gone. Draped over the back of his chair, the bow tie pulled loose and hanging around his collar. He was holding a glass. The glass was half full of something amber. He did not turn when she came in. Close the door, he said. She did. Sit or stand, whichever. She stood. He watched the rain for another few seconds. When he turned, the line of his jaw had something new in it. Not anger, something harder than anger, something like a decision he had not yet finished making. "Describe him," Lucian said. "The man with the mustache." "Yes. Older. 60s, maybe late 50s. Heavy. Not fat. Heavy. He was in a navy suit, a cigar in his breast pocket. I don't think he'd lit it. He was wearing a ring on his right hand, a big one, gold, I think with a dark stone. He was standing with you the first time. After that he moved around. I saw him twice more. Once by the bar, once near the coat check. He looked at me 3 times total." "How?" "The first was a glance, like he was checking something he'd noticed without meaning to. The second was longer. The third—" She paused. "The third, he was looking at my hands." "Your hands." "At the tray, at how I was holding it. I thought maybe he'd seen me somewhere before, that I was forgetting, but I haven't worked the Lennox before. I don't forget faces." Lucian set his glass down on the windowsill. "His name is Dmitry Karas." "Okay. He is not on the list I gave you." "Okay. He was not supposed to be at the Lennox tonight." She waited. "He runs a private security firm," Lucien said. "Retired from the State Department 15 years ago, allegedly. He has not been retired one day since. He works, among other people, for Bennett Crane. He does not attend social events. He has not been photographed at a social event in 11 years. The only reason Dmitry Karas is in a ballroom at the Lennox Hotel is if someone has told him to look for something." Her stomach did the thing it had done last night in the hallway. "You think he was looking for me?" "No, he didn't know to look for you. He was looking for someone, and your hands are what he noticed. You held the tray like a trained server, and you moved like a trained server, but you stopped 4 feet from Crane and the sister for 46 seconds, when the rest of the floor staff rotated every 15. He noticed the stop. He may not have acted on it tonight. He filed it. So he knows my face. He knows a server stopped for too long. He may not remember your face tomorrow. He may remember it for the rest of his life. I cannot know which. We have to assume the worst." "Okay." "Aria." "I said okay." "I heard you." He looked at her for a long moment. "You are not panicking." "I'm going to panic tomorrow, at 3 a.m., probably in the shower. Can we talk now and panic then?" Something moved in his face. It wasn't quite a smile. It was the thing a smile did when you told it no. "Yes," he said. "We can talk now." He told her in the next 40 minutes more than she thought he would have told her in a month. He told her that Crane was not Crane's real name, that Crane had come out of a city in Eastern Europe in the late 80s with 2 other boys and a woman, that one of the boys was now a federal judge in a state Aria had never been to, and the other had died in a warehouse fire in Philadelphia in 2003, and the woman had married into a shipping family in Greece. He told her that the Voss organization had for 3 generations controlled the movement of certain goods through the port of New York, not the way the tabloids imagined it, he said. Not cocaine in a duffel bag, but the slower, older business, the business of paperwork, the business of making sure the ship that came in on Tuesday morning had the manifest it needed, and the inspector who signed it off had the envelope he was owed. That business had been profitable and stable, he said, for 60 years, and it had stayed stable because the men who ran it had agreed a long time ago that killing each other was expensive. Crane had broken the agreement in October. "How?" Aria said. "I was in a car on the West Side Highway. There was a truck. It was supposed to cross 4 lanes into me. The driver misjudged by about 8 feet, and I misjudged by about 5, and we both ended up alive. He was supposed to die too. He was supposed to be a coincidence. When he lived, he talked. When he talked, I learned who had paid him. Crane. Through 2 layers, but yes. What did you do?" "I did nothing, which is the mistake Crane was counting on. He thought I would retaliate publicly because my father would have retaliated publicly. He thought I would start a war he could point to and then spend the next 6 months using other people's money to arm himself, and by the time I had finished my war, he would be the last man standing. That was the plan. He forgot that I am not my father." Lucien. "Yes. Are you telling me this because you need me to understand it, or because you need someone to hear it?" He looked at her. Then he looked at the rain. "Both," he said. I have not, in 3 months, said any of this out loud to another human being. Not to Miriam. Miriam knows. She doesn't need me to say it. To anyone. No. Why me? Because you asked. That's not... Aria, listen. He turned from the window. I do not have friends. I have employees, and I have enemies, and I have a sister who is currently sleeping with a man who tried to kill me. I have not had a conversation with a woman that was not transactional in 4 years. You are not a friend. I'm not confused about what you are. But you asked me a question in a hallway last night, and I told you I was not going to lie to you. And the only way I know how to keep that promise is to tell you the things that are happening. So I am telling you. She sat down. There was a leather chair in front of his desk, and she sat in it slowly, because her knees had done something again. Okay, she said. Okay. What happens now? Now you go home. Tomorrow you sleep late. Monday morning you have brunch with a woman named Celeste Marlowe at a restaurant called Caldera in the village. She doesn't know you. She will sit at the table next to yours. She will mention, in a long phone call she is going to pretend to take, a name. The name is Harker. When she says the name, you do not react. You do not repeat it to yourself. You eat your food. You leave. You tell me later whether the man at the table on her other side reacted when he heard the name. That is all I want you to do. That's all? For Monday, yes. What about Tuesday? We'll see how Monday goes. She nodded. She pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes for a second. Lucienne. Yes. I have a question that is going to sound stupid. Ask it. Am I allowed to be scared? He was quiet for a long moment. Yes, he said. I would prefer if you were. People who are not scared in this work are the ones who get other people killed. Are you scared? Yes. Of what? He looked at her for a long time. The rain on the window was a soft, constant hush, and she could hear her own heart in her ears, and she didn't know why she was still sitting in this chair, except that she didn't want to leave. I'm scared of a number of things, he said finally. I'm scared that Crane will move faster than I think he will. I'm scared my sister is farther in than I believe. I'm scared that a man named Dimitri Karas noticed the hands of the girl I sent into a ballroom tonight. I'm scared of some other things I am not going to tell you about because you do not need to carry them. That's not all of it. No, it isn't. What's the rest? Aria. Lucienne. He took a breath. He looked at the window again, not at her. I am scared, he said slowly, that I am going to get you killed, and that when I do, I am going to care about it in a way I can't afford to care about it. The room was very quiet. She did not know what to do with her face. Her face was doing something without her permission. Okay, she whispered. That is not something I should have said. No. I'm going to ask you to pretend I didn't say it. Okay? I'm not going to kiss you again. I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to let you sit in this chair at midnight again, and I am certainly not going to send you home in a car and watch from this window to make sure the car turns the corner. Those things are going to stop. Do you hear me? Yes. Good. Lucienne. Yes. You just described 5 things you're already doing tonight. He closed his eyes. It was the first time she had seen him do that, close his eyes in the middle of a conversation. He pressed his fingers against the bridge of his nose. I know, he said. Okay. Go home, Aria. I'm going. She stood up. Her legs had decided to work again, which was a small mercy. She walked to the door. She put her hand on the doorknob. She turned. He had not moved from the window. He had not looked at her. He was, she realized, making himself not look at her, the way she had made herself not look at him all night at the Lennox. And she understood for the first time that the pretending he had asked her to do in the ballroom was a skill he had been practicing on himself for hours. Lucienne. Yes. I am not going to pretend you didn't say it. Aria. I heard you. I am telling you I am not going to pretend. That is a different thing than doing anything about it. You can trust me with the information. I have been trusted with a lot of information this week. One more piece isn't going to break me. A long silence. Okay, he said. Okay. Go. She went. Monday came slow and then fast, the way Mondays do when you have not slept. She had, in the end, slept very little. Not because she had panicked in the shower at 3, though she had been waiting for it, but because when 3 a.m. finally came, she had been lying in her own bed in her own quiet apartment, and her mother had not been coughing in the next room, because her mother was uptown in a room with a garden, and the silence in the apartment had been so loud it had kept her awake. She had never lived alone before. She had not known silence could sound like that. On Sunday, she had gone uptown and had sat with her mother for 4 hours. Her mother had asked about the new job. Aria had told the lies she had rehearsed on the subway. Event coordination, back-of-house work, irregular hours. Her mother had nodded and asked whether the people were nice. Aria had said mostly yes, and Elena had looked at her for a second longer than was comfortable, and then had gone back to her crossword, because Elena Vale had spent 54 years knowing when her daughter wanted to be asked something and when she didn't. Sunday night, Miriam had sent clothes. Not a dress, not a uniform, regular clothes. A pair of jeans that fit her better than anything she owned, a soft cream sweater, boots with a low heel. An instruction note, handwritten, dress normal. You are a woman eating brunch. Do not look like staff. Do not look expensive. Boots are broken in. Wear earring in left ear. No other electronics. M. So Monday morning, Aria Vale walked into a restaurant called Caldera on Perry Street, and she sat at a small round table by the window, and she ordered coffee and a poached egg on toast that cost $19, which was a number she could not let herself dwell on. And she opened a paperback she had bought at a stoop sale in 2022 and never read, and she waited. Celeste Marlowe came in at 11:07. She was a small blonde woman, maybe 40, wearing the kind of coat a woman wears when she wants you to think she is both rich and cold. She was on the phone. She was laughing. She sat at the table to Aria's left, 2 feet away, and she did not glance at Aria, not once, and within 30 seconds, Aria understood that Celeste Marlowe was very, very good at what she did. The man on Celeste's other side was already there, early 50s, salt and pepper hair. He was reading a newspaper, an actual newspaper folded in half, and he was drinking an espresso. Nothing about him was notable, which Aria thought was probably the point. Celeste talked on her phone for 6 minutes about nothing. Then she said the name. No, but you have to tell Harker this is the last time. She said it loudly. Loudly enough that the man with the newspaper had to have heard it. Aria did not look at him. She turned a page in her book. Celeste kept going. Because last time the whole thing was a disaster, and I told you if he wants the Delaware piece, he has to clear the calendar. He can't. What? No, he knows this. Put him on. Aria let her eyes travel to the window. In the reflection, very faint, very imperfect, but there, she could see the man with the newspaper. His body had not moved, but his eyes had. They had moved off the paper for a second and fixed on Celeste, and then they had moved down to his espresso, and he had reached for it, and his hand had not been quite steady. It was a small thing. It was the kind of thing that 2 weeks ago she would not have seen. She turned another page. She ate her egg. She read a chapter of a book she would not remember reading. At 11:34, Celeste ended the call, threw a 20 on the table, and left without ordering. The man with the newspaper did not look up. At 11:42, Aria paid her bill and walked out. The black car was 3 blocks away, on Bleecker. She got in. The driver pulled away without a word. He reacted, she said, to no one in particular, and then she remembered she had the earring and she touched it, and she said it again. He reacted, the man with the newspaper. When Celeste said the name, his hand shook on the cup. Miriam's voice in her ear. Which hand? Right. Good. Come to the house. I have to go see my mother at 2. Then come to the house for an hour. Mr. Voss wants to speak to you. He was in the study again. Same desk, different light. He looked at her for a second when she came in, and something in his face moved. Quick, brief, there and gone. And then he gestured her to the chair. How was brunch? Expensive. He almost laughed. Tell me about the man. She told him. He listened. He asked her 3 questions. About the hand, about the paper, about whether the man had turned his head at all when Celeste said the name. She answered. He nodded, once, when she was done. Good, he said. Who is he? An accountant. That's not an answer. It's the answer you get today. Lucienne. Aria. Fine. He slid a small envelope across the desk. She picked it up. Inside, a folded piece of paper. She opened it. It was a check, made out to her. The number on it had more zeros than she'd seen on a check in her life. What is this? The first installment of what I owe you. You said 30 days. I said at the end of 30 days your mother's debt was gone. That's true. This is something separate. This is a salary. You are an employee now. Employees get paid. Lucienne, this is $24,000. I know. For a week. For less than a week, yes. I can't. You can. You will. You will deposit it today. There is an account opened in your name at a bank on 57th Street. The paperwork is in the envelope. The debit card is at the bottom. The PIN is your mother's birthday. That's temporary. You'll change it. She stared at the check. This is the kind of money that what? That you can't give back. Yes. Lucienne, I know what I'm doing. No, I mean, I can't walk away. On day 30. Not if you keep giving me this. This is more money than I have made in my entire life, Lucian, in cash in a week. You know that. You already know that about me. This is not an offer. It's a cage. She looked up. Yes, she said. I know. Then why? Because I am not going to pay you less than you are worth, because I am afraid of what paying you correctly means. That would be a different cage. I made a decision about which cage I was willing to put you in. I chose this one. You are allowed to be angry about it. You are still going to cash the check. You arrogant? Yes. She laughed. It came out half a sob. You know what's wrong with you. Tell me. You tell the truth like it's a weapon. It usually is. Not to me, especially to you. She put the check down on the desk. She pressed her hands flat against the leather chair. She closed her eyes for a second. Lucienne. Yes. Take me to my mother. What? I have to be uptown at 2. I don't want to take the subway. I don't want your driver. I want you to take me. Aria, you said Friday night you weren't going to do things like this. And I said I heard you. I am asking you to do one of the things you said you weren't going to do. I am asking you because I would like you to meet her. He was quiet for a long time. I don't know if that's wise, he said. It isn't. Okay? Okay? Okay. I'll take you. He drove. She had not expected that. She had assumed he had someone to drive him, the way he had someone to do everything else. But when they stepped into the garage under the townhouse, he walked past the black sedan and opened the door of a gray one she hadn't seen before. And he got in the driver's seat and she got in the passenger's. And for the first 4 blocks, he did not say a word. He drove the way he did everything else, efficiently, not fast. He did not tailgate. He did not weave. He used his signals. It was in a way she couldn't articulate, very strange to watch a man like him use a signal. You're thinking loudly, he said. He didn't look at her. I'm wondering why a Mafia boss drives like my driving instructor. I wasn't always a Mafia boss. What were you? An economics student at NYU. You're joking. No. For how long? 3 semesters. I came home one Christmas and my father was sick. I did not go back. Oh. He did not die of what they told me he was going to die of, incidentally. That was later. What did he die of? He was quiet for half a block. A man in my father's chair shot him in the back of the head in Queens in January of 2011 in a diner called The Starlight at 2:14 in the afternoon while he was eating a grilled cheese. The man who did it worked for us. His name was Tommy. I grew up with him. He called me kid until I was 23. My father had known him 31 years. I was in the car outside. I heard the shot, and I did not know it was a shot for about 4 seconds, because the parking lot was busy, and the door was closed, and I had been reading a text from a girl I was dating. I walked in. There was a lot of blood, there was a waitress screaming, there was a grilled cheese, still on the plate, half of it, with the cheese still stringing. I remember the cheese. Aria said nothing. I am sorry, he said. You asked. That was more than you asked. It wasn't more. It was. Lucienne, it wasn't. They drove 3 more blocks in silence. What happened to Tommy? She said. He is not a topic I discuss. Okay. Aria. Yes. I do not talk about my father often. It was not my intention to tell you that today. I know. I do not know what it is about you. I know. He looked at her very briefly, and she looked back, and neither of them said anything else for the rest of the drive. Ash Grove was quieter than it had been on Tuesday. The rain had stopped, and the garden outside her mother's window was wet and green, and a light was on in her mother's room. Camille was in the hall. She nodded at Aria, and then her eyes went to Lucien briefly, and Aria watched Camille register him and deliberately not react. Professional. Trained. She's awake, Camille said. She's had a good morning. She ate a whole egg. That's great. She's expecting you. Aria turned to Lucien. Wait out here. I will. I don't mean forever. I want her to eat her egg and have a morning. I'll come get you in 15. Aria. Yes. You don't have to introduce me. I know. I'm saying, but shh, you don't. I can wait. I can go. I can come back later or never. That's also a fine answer. I know that too. Wait. She pushed open her mother's door. Elena Vale was in bed, propped up on 3 pillows, wearing a cardigan Aria had never seen before. Soft, pale blue. Better than anything her mother had ever owned. She was doing the crossword. She had a yellow pencil and her reading glasses were on the end of her nose, and when she looked up, her whole face did a thing it had not done in months. Her whole face lit up. Baby. Hi, Mama. Come here. Aria went. She sat on the edge of the bed. Her mother took her hand and patted it like Aria was 8. You cut your hair. I didn't. It looks cut. I brushed it. Huh. Maybe that's it. Elena studied her for a long moment. Her eyes, which had been dull and glassy for months, were, Aria realized, almost normal today. Almost. You look different, Aria. I feel different. Good different? I don't know yet. Elena nodded. She did not push. Who's outside? Aria looked up. What? There's a man outside my door. I heard you tell him to wait. Who is he? Mama. Baby. I am dying. I am not stupid. Aria laughed. It came out wet. She pressed her thumb into the corner of her eye. He's my boss. Uh-huh. He's the person who... He's the reason we're here, Mama. He's the reason you're in this bed. Elena was quiet. Is he a good man? She said finally. I don't know. That's not a yes. It's not a no either. Aria. Mama, I don't know. I have known him for 4 days. He has done things for us that I cannot pay back. He scares me a little. He is not like the men I know. He is not like anyone I know. He is sometimes kind and sometimes not. And sometimes he tells the truth in a way that hurts, and sometimes he doesn't tell the truth at all. I don't know if he is a good man. I know he has not lied to me yet, that I have caught him in. I know he is. I know he is afraid of me, which I don't understand. I know that when he looks at me, it feels like I am being seen, Mama, for the first time in a long time, and I don't know what to do with that. I don't know if that is a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if wanting it is a good thing or a bad thing. Her mother looked at her for a long time. Bring him in, she said. Mama. Bring him in, Aria. I want to look at him. He doesn't want to be in here. He was going to wait. Then he is smarter than I thought. Bring him in anyway. Aria went to the door. She opened it. He was standing in the hall, hands clasped behind his back, looking at a painting on the wall, a bad watercolor, some kind of boat. And when he heard the door, he turned. She wants to meet you. Something moved through his face. It was not quite panic. It was the adult version of panic. The version that had been trained to look like nothing. Aria, I know. Come in. He came in. Elena Vale looked at him. She did not say anything for a full 20 seconds. He did not say anything either. He stood at the foot of her bed with his hands behind his back, and he let her look. Finally, Elena spoke. Her voice was thin, but it was hers, all hers. The voice she had used to yell at Aria for leaving her boots on the radiator when Aria was 9. "You are the one who moved me here." "Yes, ma'am." "You are my daughter's employer." "Yes, ma'am." "What is it you employ her to do?" "She serves at private events. She's been trained to observe certain conversations and report what she hears back to me." "That sounds like spying." "It is." Elena blinked. She hadn't expected him to answer. Aria could see it on her face. Her mother had expected a softer word, a PR word, and she had gotten the actual word. And the actual word had startled her. "You are honest," Elena said. "I am trying to be." "With my daughter." "Yes." "Why?" He hesitated. Elena waited. "Because I don't know how else to be with her," he said. Elena looked at him for another long moment. Then she looked at her daughter. Then she looked back at him. "Come here," she said. "Ma'am? Come here, closer. I can't see your face." He stepped closer. He stopped at the side of the bed. She reached up. Her hand was skeletal and marked with the old bruises of many IVs, and it was still her hand, still the hand that had braided Aria's hair before school for 12 years. She put it on the side of his face. He did not flinch. He did not move. She held his face for about 10 seconds. "You are not what I was afraid of," she said finally. "Ma'am, I was afraid. When she didn't come home for 2 nights. I was afraid of many things. You are not what I was afraid of. You are something else." "Yes, ma'am." "I don't know what you are." "I don't either." She let her hand fall. "Do not get her killed." "No, ma'am." "Do you hear me?" "I do." "Promise me." "I promise." Elena Vale nodded, slowly, and she lay back against her pillow, and she closed her eyes, not because she was dismissing him. Aria knew her mother, but because she had used every ounce of what she had for the last 2 minutes, and there was nothing left, and now she needed to sleep. "Aria," Elena murmured, "come kiss your mother." Aria kissed her forehead. It was cool, cooler than it had been in weeks. Camille had gotten the fever down. "I love you, Mama." "I'll come Wednesday." Sleep. Elena was already asleep. In the hallway, Lucien did not speak until they were out of Ashgrove, through the lobby, across the sidewalk, and standing next to the gray car. His hand was on the driver's side door. He had not opened it. "Aria." "Yes." "I just made a promise to your mother I do not know if I can keep." "I know." "I don't know how to keep it." "I know." "I was going to try before she asked." "I know that too." He looked at her over the roof of the car. His hair had gotten wet again. The rain was back, a fine mist, and there was a drop of it running down the side of his jaw past the old scar, and she watched it go, and she thought, "I am in so much trouble." "Get in the car," he said. "Okay." "Aria." "Yes." "Thank you for bringing me up there." "Thank you for coming up." They got in. He drove south in silence. At a red light on Park Avenue, he looked at her, once, for about 3 seconds. He did not say anything. She did not say anything either. The light changed. He looked back at the road. The rain kept falling. The windshield wipers moved. The car went on. The next 12 days folded into each other, the way days do when a person is working too hard to notice them passing. There was an event at a hotel in Midtown where Aria poured coffee for 4 men who were arguing about a zoning variance and did not once lower their voices. And she went home with 3 names and a date, and Miriam put a hand on her shoulder in the townhouse kitchen the next morning and said, "Good girl." There was a private dinner on the Upper East Side where she served consommé to a woman who had been the subject of a federal investigation 9 months earlier, and who spent most of the meal describing her summer in the south of France to a man who did not appear to be listening, and Aria reported on what the woman had said, and also on what she hadn't said, because Aria was learning that the not said was almost always the more interesting column. There was a gala at the Met where she saw Helena Voss again. Helena was in black this time. She was alone. She was standing near a fountain in the Roman sculpture court, and she was looking at a marble hand, just a hand, broken off some emperor or athlete 2,000 years ago, and she was drinking white wine, and she looked, Aria noticed, like someone who had not slept. Aria did not approach her. She had been told not to. She did not need to be told twice. But Helena turned as Aria walked past with her tray, and Helena said, "You." Aria stopped. Helena did not look at her exactly. She looked at the tray. "Do I know you?" Helena said. "No, ma'am. You serve me at the Lennox." "I serve at a lot of events, ma'am." "I know. That's why I asked." Helena finally looked up. Her eyes were Lucy Ien's eyes. It was uncanny, up close. It was the same face turned a different way. "You stood closer to me than the others, at the Lennox." Aria's pulse went somewhere it shouldn't have. "I'm sorry if I was in the way, ma'am." "You weren't in the way. You just stood closer." "Are you from Ashworth?" "Yes, ma'am." "For how long?" 3 years. "Uh-huh." Helena sipped her wine. She was looking at Aria in a way that was not aggressive, not yet, but was not casual either. It was the look of a woman doing long division in her head. "I'm going to take a glass of water from your tray," Helena said. "Of course, ma'am." Helena took one. She did not drink from it. She held it at her side. "What's your name?" "Aria, ma'am." "Aria what?" "Vale." "Aria Vale." "Yes, ma'am." Helena nodded, slowly, once. "Thank you, Aria Vale." "You can go." Aria went. She got to the service corridor. She touched her ear. "She asked my name," she said, low. "Helena." She recognized me from the Lennox. Miriam's voice was immediate and calm. "Out. Car on the 81st side." "I still have 2 hours." "You are done at this event. Out." Aria left. By the time she got to the townhouse, he was already there. He was not at the desk. He was standing in the front hall with his phone in his hand, and he was not looking at the phone. He was looking at the door, and when she walked through it, he said her name in a way he had not said her name before. Flat, tight, not angry at her. "What did she say?" "Exactly what I said on the earring. She asked my name. I told her my cover." "She didn't ask where you lived?" "No." "She didn't ask who you worked for, other than Ashworth?" "No." "Did she follow you to the corridor?" "No. I watched. She stayed in the sculpture court." "Okay." He exhaled. "Okay. Lucienne?" "Yes." "Is she going to come for me?" "No." "How do you know?" "Because she does not know enough yet to come for you. She knows there is a girl who stood close at the Lennox. She knows that girl's name is Aria Vale, and that girl works for Ashworth. By tomorrow morning, she will know the Ashworth file on you is 3 years old and ordinary, and the name of a dead uncle is in the emergency contacts. She will also know that the Ashworth file is clean, because I built it to be clean. She will put a pin in it. She will not act on it tonight." Is that bad?" "It's bad that she noticed. It's not dangerous yet." "Yet." "Yet." He ran a hand through his hair. It was the first ungoverned gesture she had seen him make. He caught himself doing it and put the hand in his pocket. "I should not have put you on the Helena side of this again. That was my error. I thought she wouldn't be there tonight. She was alone. I know. Lucienne. She was alone, and she looked like she hadn't slept, and she was standing in front of a piece of a statue with the wine going warm in her hand." He looked at her. "Go on." "I don't know what I'm going on to. I saw her, and I thought, that woman is not okay." "No, she isn't." He was quiet for a second. "Come upstairs. I want to show you something." The something was a map. It was on the far wall of the study, behind a sliding panel she had not noticed in the bookcase. He pushed the panel aside, and there it was. A map of New York, taped to the wall, with pins in it. Red pins, black pins. A single blue pin on the Upper East Side that she understood, after a second, was Ashgrove, her mother. "This is Crane's operation," he said. "What I know of it. The red is legal, the black is not. The blue is you." "Why is mine blue?" "Because you are the only person on this map I am responsible for personally." "Okay." He pointed to a cluster of black pins in a neighborhood she did not recognize. He is running something out of this warehouse in Red Hook. Something new. It has been active for 4 weeks. I have had 3 pairs of eyes on it. None of them have gotten close enough to tell me what. You see this pin here? I have a man on the block, in a laundromat across the street, and he has seen trucks come in, and he has seen trucks come out, and he has not seen what is in them. The loading bay opens inward. Everything is unloaded before the door goes up. They are very, very careful, okay? Crane is having a housewarming this Saturday. A housewarming. He has bought a penthouse in a building called the Serrano on 58th. He is throwing a party. There will be approximately 200 people. I am invited. So is Helena. So is half the room I do not want you anywhere near. But his offices, his actual offices, the ones with the paperwork for whatever is in that warehouse, are on a floor of the Serrano that is not part of the penthouse. They are 4 floors below. The building belongs to him. And there is going to be a girl at that party who is on the catering staff who is going to slip away for exactly 6 minutes at 10:40 p.m. Aria looked at him. No, she said. Aria. No, absolutely not. You said I was a listener. You said I served drinks and I remembered. You did not say I was going to be breaking into offices. You are not breaking in. You are being let in. By my man in the building. You're going to a specific office. You're going to a specific drawer. You're taking a specific folder. You're bringing it back. The cameras on that floor will be off for 7 minutes. You need 6. That leaves you a minute of error. If anything at all feels wrong, you leave. Lucien, I know. I said no. I heard you. Why are you asking me? He was quiet for a long time. Because it has to be someone nobody is looking at, he said. Because the man in the laundromat cannot walk into the Serrano. Because Helena will be there, and Helena will be watching every one of my people. Because Karas will probably be there. Because the only person who can walk into that party and not ping a single alarm is a girl on the catering staff who is already going to be there with the legitimate crew. I am not sending you. I am asking you. You are not asking me. You are presenting a plan and hoping I say yes. Yes. Lucien. Yes. If I say no, what happens? Then I don't have the folder. Then I keep looking. Then we do the 30 days the way I originally planned, and you walk away on day 30 with what I promised you, and I find another way to do this piece of it. How long will that take? I don't know. A month. 3. There's a clock on this, Aria. Crane is moving something on the 12th of next month. You heard him say it. I do not have 3 months to find the paper that tells me what. She sat down. She pressed her palms against her eyes. She breathed. I need to think, she said. Okay. Don't push me. I'm not. You are standing next to me wanting me to say yes. That is pushing. He sat down on the opposite side of the desk. He said nothing. She sat like that for a long time. Finally, without lifting her face from her hands, she said, if I do this, if I say yes, and I get caught, you won't. If I do, then I burn the building down, metaphorically. Lucien, not metaphorically. Then I burn the building down. I mean it. If I get caught, what happens to me? Nothing. Happens. To you. Because I will come through the front door of that building with every man I have before anyone in that building gets their hands on you. You will never be alone in that building, Aria. Not for 1 second. There will be a man in the stairwell. There will be a man on the roof. There will be a man in a car on 58th. There will be me in the ballroom pretending I don't know you, and if anything at all, anything, goes sideways, I am across the building in 90 seconds. And if I say the word, orchid, if I say it, then I am across the building in 90 seconds, and I am no longer pretending I don't know you, which means, Aria, you have to understand, which means every person in that ballroom who has been watching me watches me walk across the room to you, and that is a fact that cannot be taken back. After that, you are mine, publicly, in the eyes of every man Crane has in that room. That is an outcome I am prepared to accept. I am telling you so. You know what happens if you say the word. She lifted her face. So after Saturday night, I might not be invisible anymore. If it goes wrong, yes. And if it goes right. If it goes right, you finish the last of the 30 days, I honor the agreement, and on day 31 you go home. Go home where? Wherever you want. Anywhere. I will buy you a house. I will buy you a ticket. I will drive you myself. Anywhere. Even away from you. He looked at her for a long, long moment. Especially away from me. Yes. She sat with that. Outside the window the light was going. It was one of those February afternoons where the sun came out for 40 minutes at 4 and made everything gold, and then the dark fell fast. The gold was on the edge of the window now. It was moving up the wall. In a few minutes, it would be gone. I want to see my mother first, she said. Saturday is Saturday. You can go tomorrow. You can go tonight. I want to go tonight. I want to see her tonight. And then I want to come back here, and I want to eat a meal with you, like a person eats a meal. And I want you to tell me every single thing about Saturday night, step by step, room by room, door by door, and then I will decide. Okay? And Lucian. Yes. If at any point in the dinner I decide no, I decide no. You don't push again. You don't bring it up tomorrow. You don't mention it in the car. It is dead. Do you understand? Yes. Say it. If you say no, it is dead. I will not push. Okay. She went uptown. She sat with her mother for an hour. She did not say anything about Saturday. She held her mother's hand and she asked her mother what the nurse had brought her for lunch, and her mother told her it was a piece of salmon that was actually good, which her mother said in the tone of a woman who had spent her whole life assuming restaurant food was a scam. And Aria laughed until she cried a little. And her mother said, "Baby, what is wrong?" And Aria said nothing. "Mama, I'm tired." And her mother looked at her for a second and then did not press. Elena said at the end, "When are you coming again?" "Sunday." "Okay." "Mama." "Yes." If something came up Sunday, then Monday. Monday. "Come whenever, baby. I'm not going anywhere." Elena smiled, very small. Which is funny, because a year ago I would have said that as a joke, and now it is just true. Aria laughed. She kissed her mother. She left. In the hall she stood for a minute with her forehead against the wall, and she did not cry. Because Camille was at the nurse's station, and Camille had seen enough of Aria's face, and then she straightened up and walked out. He had ordered food from a place she did not know. It was not in the dining room of the townhouse, which she had never been in anyway. It was in the kitchen, at the small staff table in the back, where Miriam sat during the day, and where apparently Lucian also sometimes sat. The food was simple: roast chicken, potatoes, a green salad with something warm in it, a bottle of wine she did not recognize. "I am not a good cook," he said when she came in. "I am telling you that up front. I did not cook this. I am not trying to present this as something I cooked." Lucien. "I know, I am nervous. It is a strange feeling. I am handling it badly. Sit." She sat. She almost laughed. She almost told him she had never seen him nervous before and she would like to make him nervous again sometime. She did not say any of that. Instead, she watched him pour the wine, and she watched his hand, and she noticed, not for the first time, but for the first time with her whole attention, that there were 2 small scars on his knuckles, and one longer one along the back of his right hand, and she wondered, for a second, what had made them. They ate. He walked her through Saturday in the order she had asked him to. He did not use a map or a diagram. He did it from memory, the way a man who had walked through a room 100 times could walk through it again with his eyes closed. The service entrance on 58th, the loading dock, the freight elevator, the staging area on the penthouse level, the stairwell between the penthouse and the offices 4 floors below, the camera blackout, 4 cameras, all on one loop, handled from a room in New Jersey by a woman he had paid and never met in person, whose face he did not know and who did not know his. The office, the drawer, the folder, the route back. 6 minutes. "What's in the folder?" she said. "Shipping manifests for the warehouse in Red Hook, with a cover sheet that will tell me, I hope, what company is receiving the goods. That is the question I need answered. Who is at the end of the chain? And once you know, once I know I can stop the shipment on the 12th. How?" Aria. How? He looked at her. I will not, in this case, personally hurt anyone. I am telling you that because I know you will ask. What I will do is place a phone call to a man in a building downtown whose job it is to care about shipments that come through the port of New York. That is all. The rest of it happens without me lifting another finger. A phone call. Yes. To a Fed. To a man who has a title and an office. You can do that. Once, for this. Yes. Why only once? Because the currency of a phone call like that is one use. I have been saving it. Crane did not think I had it at all. I have been letting him think that for 17 years. 17 years. Yes. Lucienne. Yes. The longer I know you, the worse this all gets. I know. She laughed. She did. She pressed her fingers into her eyes and she laughed. And she took a sip of the wine and she said, "Okay, Saturday." Yes? I'll do it. Saturday. Aria, if you make me repeat it, I'm going to change my mind, so don't. I'll do it. I want one thing first. Anything. Don't say anything. I'm going to tell you the thing. Don't agree to it before you have heard it. He closed his mouth. I want Helena on that list of people you protect. What? If Saturday night goes wrong, if it goes wrong in a big way. You were telling me earlier that there would be men on the roof and in the stairwell and in a car and in the ballroom, and I understood, Lucien. I understood that all those men are for me. That's what you said. I am asking for one more thing. I want a man for her too, not because she is good, not because she has earned it, because she is alone and she is not sleeping. And she asked the name of a waitress in the Met tonight, the way a woman asks when she is trying to figure out if a stranger is going to be the person who saves her or the person who kills her. And I want her to have someone. I don't want her to not have someone because of me. He looked at her for a long time. Aria. Yes. You are. Don't. Just say if you can do it. I can do it. Thank you. It was already on the list. What? It was already on the list. I already have a man on her since October. She does not know. I could not tell her. I am telling you. She stared at him. Since October. Yes. Lucien, she is alone. She is alone in the Met looking at a broken hand. She is alone. She is also safer than she thinks she is. Those are both true. I cannot reveal the second to her until this is over, because the person watching her is the only person in our world she does not recognize. And if she recognized him, she would tell Crane because she does not yet know which side of this she is on. She thinks she does. She is wrong. She is your sister. Yes. Lucienne. Yes. I am trying to be furious with you and it is not working. I am sorry. It is not working because you are the most complicated man I have ever met. And every time I get my anger lined up, you tell me some piece of information that makes me put the anger down. I am sorry. Stop apologizing. I don't even know what I'm angry about anymore. Okay. They sat. The chicken was cold. The wine was almost gone. Outside, on the street, a siren went by and then a second one and then silence. Lucien. Yes. I'm going to ask you something and I want a real answer. Okay. The kiss. Yes. You said it would not happen again. Yes. Is that still true? He did not answer right away. He put his fork down. He folded his napkin. He looked at her. It is still true. Why? Because you have not yet finished the 30 days. Because until you do, anything that happens between us is not a thing you chose freely. I am not going to kiss a woman who is working for me. That is not a rule I am going to break. I am not going to break it on day 12 because you asked me in a kitchen and I am... You are what? I am Lucien. Aria. I am trying. Okay. Okay? Okay. I wasn't asking you to. I was asking if the reason was still the same. It is still the same. Okay. Aria. Yes. Day 30 is not that far away. I know. I am telling you so you know. I know, Lucien. They did not say anything for a long time. Eventually, she got up and helped him clear the plates, and he stopped her once and said, "You don't have to do that." And she said, "I know, I want to," and so she did. They stood at the sink, the two of them, a man in a $1,000 shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbow, and a woman who had, 2 weeks earlier, been counting pills in a kitchen on 142nd Street. And they washed dishes, and neither of them said a thing. And for the first time in a long time, Aria felt the thing she had been chasing on the balcony in March, the night she had cried. Not peace. She was not that naive anymore. Something quieter than peace. Something like the absence, for exactly 9 minutes, of being afraid. Saturday came. The Serrano lobby was marble and bronze, and a concierge who looked like he had been hired for his jawline. Aria came in with the caterers through the service door on 58th. She was wearing the uniform of a company called White Oak Hospitality, which was the legitimate caterer for the evening. She had been inserted into their crew as a last-minute ad. Her paperwork was flawless. Her shoes were the black ones Paulette had chosen. The pearl was in her left ear. At 10:32, she was carrying a tray of canapés across the penthouse. At 10:38, she stepped into a service corridor behind the kitchen. At 10:39, a man she had never seen before opened a door marked Fire Exit, Staff Only. 4 floors, he said low. Stairs, not the elevator. Office 4A. The door is unlocked. Drawer 3 from the bottom. Red folder, not blue. Then back up. Do not stop on any floor between. Okay. You have 6. Okay. He held the door. She slipped through. The door clicked shut behind her. The stairwell was concrete and yellow painted and smelled like new paint and dust. Her heels sounded loud. She took them off. She went down 4 floors on stockinged feet, carrying the shoes in one hand. She reached 4A. She opened the door. The office was dark except for one lamp. It was bigger than she had expected. There was a mahogany desk. There were 2 leather chairs. There was a cabinet against the far wall, and she went to it, and she crouched, and she pulled open the 3rd drawer from the bottom. Red folder. Not blue. She took it. She did not look inside. She was not supposed to look inside. She closed the drawer. She stood up. She was turning toward the door when she heard the footsteps. They were in the hallway. They were coming this way. She froze. She had 1 second to decide. Back behind the desk. Under the desk would be better? No, the knee panel didn't go to the floor. Anyone walking in could see her. The closet. There was a closet by the window. She crossed to it, silent on her stockings, and she opened it, and she slipped inside, and she pulled it almost but not quite closed behind her. The office door opened. Someone came in. She could not see. She pressed herself flat against the back wall of the closet. She could hear breathing. Male. Not labored. Calm. She heard the door close. The voice that spoke was not Crane's. It was Russian accented, deep, a voice she had heard once before, through the ear of another woman, at another party. Dmitry Karas. You know I can hear you, he said pleasantly. Whoever you are. She did not move. She did not breathe. You came in on stockings. I can see the heel marks on the floor. Wax shows everything. Do you want to tell me why you were in a closet in Bennett Crane's office, or do I have to open the door? She touched her ear. She said very softly, against her own shoulder, into the microphone, Orchid. She said it again. Orchid. Through the door of the closet, Kara said, I'm going to count to 3. In her ear, Miriam's voice, hold, 90 seconds. 1. She thought, I have 90 seconds of air left in this closet, and I have said the word, and I do not know if 90 seconds will be enough, and I do not know if he has a gun, and I'm wearing stockings and a catering dress, and I cannot fight a man who used to work for the State Department, and the only thing in my hands is a red folder that is about to either save my mother's life or end mine. 2. Miriam, in her ear, 60 seconds. Aria closed her eyes. She thought of her mother in a bed with a window. She thought of Lucien, somewhere in the ballroom above her, pretending he did not know her, making himself not look at the service door. She thought, I am not done yet. 3. The closet door opened. Dmitry Karas was a heavy man in a dinner jacket, and his face was not cruel. It was worse. It was patient. It was the face of a man who had done this many times and had never once lost a night's sleep over any of it. His eyes went from her face to her hands, to the folder, to her face again. Hello? He said. Who sent you? She did not answer. Sweetheart, I'm going to ask one more time, and then we are going to have a different kind of conversation. Who sent you? In her ear, Miriam. 40 seconds. Aria looked at him. She made herself look at him. Her mother had taught her, when she was 7, that if a dog was about to bite you, the worst thing you could do was look away. You had to hold the eye. You had to let it see that you were not going to run. I got lost, she said. He laughed. It was a real laugh. Oh, sweetheart, he said. You're good. You are very good. Who trained you? I got lost looking for the bathroom. I came down the wrong stairs. In stockings. My heel broke. Both of them. I took them both off. Women do that. Uh-huh. He reached slowly for the folder in her hand. Give me the folder, sweetheart. Sir, I don't know what you mean. This was on the desk. I thought maybe I could... Sweetheart, give me the folder, or I take it. Those are the options. In her ear, 20 seconds. She did not give him the folder. She dropped it. She dropped it behind her into the closet, and she heard it hit the floor, and she said the only thing she could think of, which was the truest thing she had ever said. My mother is sick. He blinked. For half a second. That was all she needed. Half a second of him adjusting, recalibrating, filing this new piece of information, and in that half second, somewhere above them, 44 floors away, there was a sound. It was a sound she would not later be able to describe. It was not a gunshot. It was not a scream. It was something that was not supposed to be there in a building like this, at a party like this. A sound that did not belong in the Serrano, and she watched Dimitri Karas's face change, and she watched him turn his head toward the door, and then she heard the footsteps in the hallway, more than one pair coming fast, and a voice she knew. A voice she had heard for the first time behind a bar 2 weeks ago, and which she would never in her life forget, said, from what felt like very close and very far at the same time, Dimitri, step away from her. Karas did not turn. Voss, step away. I did not think you would come yourself. I am not going to ask twice. There was a silence that lasted possibly 2 seconds and possibly 4 years. Dimitri Karas took one step back from the closet. Aria saw Lucien over his shoulder. Lucien was in a tuxedo. Lucien was also holding a gun. It was a small, matte, business-like gun, and he was holding it. The way a man who had held many guns held one, with his arm relaxed and his eyes on Karas's face. Not on the gun, not on the hand, on the face. Behind Lucien, in the hallway, there were 3 men she had never seen before. They were also holding guns. They were also not looking at the guns. Aria, Lucien said, walk to me. She walked. She was still in stockings. She did not pick up her heels. She walked past Dimitri Karas, close enough to brush his sleeve, and he did not move, and she did not look at him. And when she got to Lucien, she did not stop. She walked straight into his chest, and he did not put the gun down, but he put his free arm around her, and he held her, and he did not take his eyes off Dimitri Karas, not for 1 second. Get the folder, Lucien said to one of the men behind him. The man got the folder. Mr. Voss, Karas said pleasantly, you understand this is going to be a problem. I understand. Bennett is not going to let this go. I know. You have made a very public choice tonight. I know that too. For a waitress. Yes. I hope she is worth it. She is. The men moved. Aria did not know exactly what happened next in the office because Lucien turned her gently and walked her out of it and down the hallway and into the elevator, and his arm did not leave her shoulders for the entire walk. And she did not ask what the men were doing to Dimitri Karas because she understood, with a certainty that was not confused, that she did not want to know. In the elevator, she started to shake. She shook hard, her whole body. Her teeth were doing something embarrassing. She tried to stop and she could not. And Lucien pressed a button that made the elevator stop between floors, and he set the gun down on the little shelf where you were supposed to put shopping bags, and he took her face in both of his hands. Aria, I'm fine. You are not fine. I said orchid. I did it. I said it twice. I heard you. I dropped the folder. I saw. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't give it to him. Aria. I didn't know if you were going to get there. I didn't know, Miriam said 90 seconds, and I thought, what if it isn't 90? What if it's more? Aria. Yes, I got there. You got there. Yes. She stopped shaking for about 3 seconds. Then she did the thing she was not going to do. The thing she had been very carefully not doing for 2 weeks. She leaned up and she kissed him. It was not the kiss she had asked for in a service corridor. It was the kiss of a woman who had just been in a closet and said, "My mother is sick to a man who is going to kill her." And it was not graceful. It was not soft. It was her mouth on his mouth because her mouth needed to be on a mouth that was alive and was his. And for a long moment he kissed her back. And then, with a kind of pain in his face she had not seen before, he pulled away. "Day 30, he said. His voice was hoarse. "Aria, day 30. I know. I cannot do this tonight. Not tonight. Not with you shaking. Not after that. I know. I will. On day 30. I will do every part of what you are asking me to do. Not tonight. Okay? Okay." He pressed his forehead against hers for 1 second. Then he reached over and pressed the button, and the elevator started moving again. And when the doors opened at the lobby, there was a car at the curb with the door open and Miriam in the back seat, already reaching for her. And it was over. It was, for tonight, over. The car pulled away from the Serrano. Aria sat with her head against Miriam's shoulder, and she did not cry, because the part of her that cried was not working yet, and Miriam did not say anything. Miriam just put a hand on Aria's hair and left it there, the way a mother would, the way her own mother would have, and the city slid past the window in long streaks of yellow and red, and somewhere 44 floors above 58th Street, a party was still going on, and the people at it did not yet know what had happened on the 4th floor. And in the front seat the driver said nothing, and the rain had stopped, and the streets were still wet, and it was 2 a.m. She did not go home that night. The car did not take her to 142nd Street. It did not take her to the townhouse either. It took her to a building on the Upper West Side that she had never seen before, one of those anonymous pre-war addresses where the doorman wore gloves and did not ask a woman in a catering uniform what she was doing, coming in at 2:30 in the morning with red marks on her wrists and no shoes on her feet. Miriam walked her through the lobby with an arm around her shoulders like Aria had drunk too much at a wedding, and the doorman touched the brim of his cap and said nothing, and the elevator took them to a floor that was not marked on the panel. And when the doors opened, Aria understood, in the distant way she understood most things now, that this was another of Lucian's places. A place he had set up, apparently, for exactly this kind of night. A bed, a shower, a closet of clean clothes in her size, a small kitchen stocked with food she might actually eat, 2 locks on the door, the good kind, and a camera in the hallway that showed anyone who stepped off the elevator. "You sleep," Miriam said. "You eat when you wake up. You do not answer the phone unless it is me or him. You do not go outside until someone comes for you." "Where's Lucien?" "Working." "Miriam." "He is fine, sweetheart. He is fine. He has things to do tonight that cannot wait until tomorrow. He will come to you when he has done them. Go, sleep." "I can't sleep." "You will. The body does what the body has to do." Miriam was right. Aria slept. She slept in a bed that was softer than anything she had owned in her life, in sheets that smelled faintly of something clean and new, with the door double locked and a glass of water on the nightstand. And she did not dream, or if she dreamed, she did not remember it. And when she woke up, the light coming through the curtains was the kind of light that only happens in the late afternoon in February, gold going quickly to gray, and her phone said 4:17 p.m. There was one text. "When you're ready, no rush. L." She showered for a long time. She ate half a sandwich somebody had left in the fridge. She put on a sweater and jeans from the closet, and they fit. And she stood in the bathroom of a stranger's apartment that was not quite a stranger's, and she looked at the woman in the mirror, and she thought about the woman who had looked back at her at the townhouse 2 weeks ago. The woman in the mirror had the same face. The woman in the mirror was not the same person. He was waiting for her at the townhouse. He was not at the desk this time. He was on the 2nd floor landing, sitting on the top step, with his elbows on his knees and his hands clasped loose between them, and he looked up when she came up the stairs, and he did not stand. He was in jeans. She had never seen him in jeans. There was a small cut on his lower lip that had not been there last night, and there was a bruise forming along his left cheekbone, faint, yellowing at the edges. and his knuckles on his right hand were wrapped in white tape. "You're hurt," she said. "Not very." "Lucien." "Aria, I'm fine." "What happened?" "I had to be in a room I didn't want to be in this morning." "With who?" He did not answer right away. "Bennett Crane." "Oh my God." "He is also fine, more or less. We came to an understanding. Sit." She sat. She sat 2 steps below him on the landing, so she had to look up to see him, which was stupid, but the stairs were the only place in the house she wanted to be right now. He did not try to move her. "Tell me," she said. "All of it." "You don't have to hear all of it. I heard a man tell me to hand him a folder last night, and I thought I was going to die in a closet. I would like all of it, Lucien, please." He took a breath. He put his hand on the back of his neck, the way men do when they are trying to figure out where to start. "The folder you pulled was what I hoped it was. Shipping manifests, a cover sheet, the name of a company in Panama that routes to a man in Kazakhstan who buys weapons from. It doesn't matter who. The point is the folder had enough on it that I could make one phone call this morning at 7 a.m. And by noon the shipment that was going to leave the port on the 12th was, it won't leave, it isn't going to leave. The container has been flagged. That operation is over. Crane is going to lose something in the area of $60 million because of what you pulled out of a drawer last night." She stared at him. 60. Yes. Lucien. Yes. Why am I still alive? Because at 6 a.m. this morning, I sat in a back room of a restaurant in Brooklyn that has been neutral ground for 40 years, and I drank coffee with Bennett Crane, and I told him the facts. The facts. 1. I have the folder. 2. I have already made the call. The shipment is gone either way. There is nothing he can do to get it back. 3. If anything happens to you, your mother, Miriam, or anyone I employ, 4 more folders like this one, already in sealed envelopes with 4 different attorneys, go to 4 different federal offices by Friday. 4. If I die, the same thing happens, on a timer. 5. He is going to call Dimitri Karas home. Dimitri Karas is going to retire. Dimitri Karas is never going to stand within 100 feet of you again. 6. Helena is going to leave him tonight. She does not know this yet. He is going to allow it, cleanly, and he is going to do it by 9 p.m. 7. After those things happen, he and I go back to the peace my grandfather made with his predecessor in 1974, and neither of us speaks the other's name again. And he agreed. He agreed to 6 of the 7. He wanted to argue about Helena. I told him Helena wasn't a negotiation. He tried to hit me. I took it. Then I told him if he ever lifted his hand to my sister again, I would not take the second one. That's the cut. Yes. Lucien. Yes. Why did you let him hit you? He thought for a second. Because he needed to, he said finally. Because the only way a man like Crane signs a 7-point piece is if he gets to feel like he won one of the points. That was the point. I gave it to him. That was the business. She shook her head. That was not the business. That was you letting a man who tried to kill you put his hand on your face. Yes. So that I wouldn't have to be afraid for the rest of my life. He did not answer. She looked at him. She looked at him for a long time, and he looked back, and he did not look away. And there was a thing moving behind his eyes that she had seen before and had not had a name for, and that she now understood had had a name from the beginning, and she had simply not let herself say it. Lucien. Yes. What about Helena? She called me at 1 p.m. today. She had been told to call me. She did not know I was the one who had her told. She cried for about 10 minutes. Then she told me she had known about Crane since before Christmas. She had not been able to figure out how to leave. She had not known who to tell. She said she was sorry. She said she had been afraid I would never forgive her. I told her there was nothing to forgive. I told her she had a sister. Aria's eyes filled. You told her that? Yes. Already? Yes. Lucien. She is on her way here now. She will be here in about an hour. I did not tell her which woman you were. I did not tell her last night was you. I wanted you to meet her as yourself, not as the girl in the Met with the tray, if that's all right. Yes. Okay. Lucienne. Yes. Today was day 17. I know. Not day 30. I know. You said day 30. Aria. Say it. He looked at her. Day 30 is a line I drew. I drew it for a reason. I still mean the reason. But you kissed me in an elevator last night after a man tried to take you, and I did not sleep. And I sat in a room with Bennett Crane this morning because I could not imagine any other 17 days of my life in which you were not sleeping safe somewhere I did not control. And I have been sitting on this staircase for 4 hours waiting for you to come up it. So I am telling you, the line is still the line. But I'm not going to pretend to you that it means what it meant 2 weeks ago. It does not. I was not honest about that then. I am being honest about it now. She stood up. She went up 2 steps. So she was on the landing with him, and she sat down next to him, and she put her head on his shoulder. He did not move for a second. Then he put his arm around her, and he rested his cheek against the top of her head, very lightly, not pressing, and they sat on the top step of a staircase in a townhouse in Tribeca, and they did not speak. After a long time, she said, I want to finish the 30 days. Aria, I am telling you, I am finishing them. I am not doing it because I'm afraid of the money. I'm doing it because I said I would, and because I want the last 13 of them on the record. I want to earn every one of them. I want to know, when this is over, that I did what I said I would do. Then, on day 31, I will come through that door, and I will decide who I am going to be after that, and you are going to let me decide it without your thumb on the scale. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Aria. Yes. For the record, there's nothing for you to do for the next 13 days except sit with your mother and sleep and eat. The work you were going to do is done. You finished it last night. Then I will sit with my mother. Okay. And Lucienne. Yes. When I come back on day 31. Yes. Don't be on this staircase. Okay. Be in the study, at your desk, like a grown man. Okay. With the door open. Aria. Yes. Okay. Helena came in through the front door without knocking. She came up the stairs fast. She was in a coat that was not hers, one of the spare coats Miriam kept by the door, and her makeup had been cried off hours ago and had not been put back on, and her hair was pulled into a ponytail that had started out at some point as a professional ponytail and was now a ponytail at the end of a very long day. And she stopped 2 stairs below the landing, and she looked at her brother, and she looked at the woman next to him, and her eyes, Lucienne's eyes, same gray, same set, went narrow for half a second before she understood. You, Helena said. Me, Aria said. At the Lennox. Yes. At the Met. Yes. You were... Yes. Helena started to cry. She sat down on the step where she was, and she put her head in her hands, and she cried in the ugly, undignified way that women cry when they have been holding something for a long time and have finally put it down. Lucienne made a small sound. He moved to go to her. Aria put a hand on his arm. No, Aria said. Me. She got up and she went down the 2 stairs, and she sat down next to Helena Voss, who was, on paper, one of the most dangerous women in the city, and who was, tonight, a woman who needed someone to sit next to her. Aria did not touch her. She just sat there. She waited. After a while, Helena wiped her face with the back of her hand, the way a child does, and she said without looking up, He kissed me at Christmas. Lucienne? Crane. Bennett. Under the stupid little tree he put up at his stupid little penthouse. He kissed me, and I let him, and I thought, he is going to destroy me, and I thought, at least someone is going to destroy me on purpose. I'm sorry. You do not have to be sorry. I am the one who stayed. I knew what he was. I knew what he was doing to my brother. I knew, and I stayed because I was lonely, and because my father had been dead for 15 years, and because Lucien ran the family after that, and Lucien does not know how to need people. You know, I know. He doesn't know how to say I am lonely, so I did not know how to say it to him either. And I went and found someone who did know how to hold a person in a room, and it turned out he was the man who... She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Helena. Yes? My name is Aria. I know. I know you know. I want to say it again. My name is Aria, and 2 weeks ago I was a waitress in Queens, and my mother was dying in an apartment I could not keep warm, and your brother came and got me out of it. He did not do it clean. He did not do it nice. He asked me to do things I should not have done, and I did them because I had to, and because somewhere in the first week I stopped doing them only for the money. I want you to know that. I want you to know it from me, not from him. Okay? I am not afraid of you. Okay. I think if you and I had met last month at the Met, without any of this, we would probably not have liked each other very much. Helena laughed. It came out wet and surprised. Probably not. I am willing to try anyway. If you are. Helena looked at her. Her face was a mess, and her mascara was somewhere down by her collarbone, and she was not beautiful right now, the way she had been beautiful in the Roman sculpture court. But there was something else in her face, something Aria had seen once before, on her own mother's face. The day the doctor had told them the first biopsy was benign and then had come back 6 months later to say the second one wasn't. Relief that hadn't finished arriving. The look of a person who has not yet caught up with the fact that the worst thing is over. I'm going to be hard to like for a while, Helena said. I know. I am also probably not going to be sober for a few weeks. I am telling you in advance. I know. How do you know? Because I've met women before, Helena. Helena laughed again. She laughed, and she cried, and she reached out, and she took Aria's hand, and she held it like a person holds a rope. Upstairs on the landing, Lucien watched them, and he did not move, and he did not say anything, and when, after a long time, his sister stood up and climbed the last 2 stairs and folded into him, he did not say anything then either. He held her. She cried against his shoulder. He put his chin on the top of her head, and his eyes closed, and over his sister's shoulder he met Aria's eyes, one time, and what passed between them then did not need a word for it. It had not needed one, for a while. The next 13 days went by the way the best days always did, quietly, and with very little to say about them later because nothing extraordinary happened in them. Aria took the subway uptown every morning. She sat with her mother in the room with the garden. She read to her mother from a novel neither of them understood. She ate lunch with Camille in the staff kitchen, and she learned the Portuguese word for thank you, which Camille's grandmother had also said every day, 3 times a day, to the grandchildren, to the rice, to the sky. She met Helena for coffee twice in those 2 weeks. Helena was sober the second time. They did not talk about Crane. They talked about a movie Helena had loved when she was 16 and which Aria had never heard of, and Helena made Aria promise to watch it, and Aria watched it that night in the apartment on the Upper West Side alone, on a couch that did not belong to her yet, and she cried at the end, which was not the kind of ending the movie thought it had. On day 24, her mother died. It was not a surprise, and it was also, completely, a surprise. It happened at 3:11 in the morning. Camille was with her. Aria was not. Camille called her at 3:14, and the call had one of those pauses at the beginning, the kind that tells you the news before the news does. And Aria sat up in bed and she said, Camille. And Camille said, in a voice that was the kindest voice Aria had ever heard anybody use on a phone, she is gone, Miss Vale. About a minute ago. It was very gentle. She was holding my hand. She was not afraid. Aria did not cry for about 20 minutes. Then she cried for 8 hours. She cried on the subway going uptown. She cried in the elevator. She cried in the room with the garden, sitting on the edge of the bed where her mother was not yet cold, holding her mother's hand, which was cool but was still Elena's hand, the hand that had braided her hair before school, the hand that had slapped her once when she was 12 for saying something cruel to a girl on her block, the hand that had held a pencil over a crossword 2 weeks ago. She cried on the floor of the small bathroom, in the room with the garden. She cried when Camille brought her a cup of tea and did not ask her to drink it, just put it on the floor next to her. Lucien came at 11 in the morning. He did not say the things people say. He did not say, I'm sorry. He did not say she is in a better place. He did not say I loved her too, though he had met her twice and she had held his face between her hands once, and he had, Aria thought, probably loved her in the way that men like him loved anyone, which was privately and with difficulty. What he did was sit on the floor next to her, against the wall of her mother's bathroom, for an hour, and he did not touch her, and he did not speak. And when Aria finally rested her head against his shoulder, he put his arm around her and he held her for a long time. And at some point, Aria slept against his collarbone for 20 minutes and woke up without knowing she had slept. And he was still there, and his arm was still there. And the tea was still next to them on the floor, still warm. Elena Vale was buried in a plot in a cemetery in Queens that Aria, before, would have spent a year of her life trying to afford. Lucien paid for it. Aria did not fight him on it. She had learned by then when to fight and when not to. Mrs. Petrova came to the funeral. So did Camille. So did Miriam. So did a woman from her mother's old church whose name Aria had forgotten and had to ask and then forgot again. Helena came too. Helena stood in a black coat at the back of the small crowd and did not come forward, and Aria understood it was not because Helena did not want to, but because Helena did not yet feel like she had earned the right. And Aria walked back to her through the wet grass at the end of the service, and she put her arm through Helena's arm, and she said, "Come up front, come on." And Helena came up front and held Aria's hand while they lowered Elena Vale into the ground. At the reception, which was at the small church hall, Mrs. Petrova kissed Aria's forehead and said, in her heavy accent, "Your mother raised you right. Do you remember?" "I remember," Aria said. "Good. Do not forget again." "No, Mrs. Petrova. Come to my apartment on Sundays. I will cook." "I will." Mrs. Petrova patted her cheek and went to find a cookie. Day 30 was a Tuesday. She woke up at 6 in the apartment on the Upper West Side. She made coffee. She drank it at the window watching the river. She went to the cemetery at 9, and she sat on the wet earth next to her mother's grave, and she said, out loud, what she had not said at the funeral because at the funeral she had not been able to get her mouth to work. "I don't know what I'm doing, Mama. I don't know if I am doing it right. I know you would have opinions about at least 7 pieces of it. I know you would be mad about some of them. I am going to do it anyway. I am telling you that in advance. But I'm going to try to do it the way you would have wanted, the parts of it you would have wanted me to do that way. I am going to try to be a person you would have recognized. I am telling you that too." She stayed until 10:30. Then she got on the subway. She rode it down to Tribeca. She walked the 4 blocks to the townhouse. She went up the front steps, and she rang the bell because today was not a day when she was going to walk in through her own key, and Miriam opened it. "Miss Vale," Miriam said, and she smiled, which was not a thing Miriam had done often. "Hi, Miriam." "He's in the study." "Is the door open?" "It is." "Good." She walked past Miriam and up the stairs. The door to the study was open. Lucien was at the desk. He was in a suit, not jeans, navy, no tie, the collar open 1 button. And he was reading something on paper, and he did not look up when she came in, because he was, Aria understood, trying very hard to follow her rule and be, for this moment, a grown man at his desk and not a man on a staircase. She almost laughed at him. "Lucien." "Yes." "Put the paper down." He put the paper down. He looked at her. For a long moment he didn't say anything. His face did the thing it had done the night she had kissed him in the elevator, only slower, like it had had 10 days to get ready for this moment, and had spent all 10 of them practicing and was, now, finding that no amount of practice was enough. "Aria." "Day 31, she said. "Day 31. "I know it is technically day 30. I know. I'm calling it 31. The last one was on me." "Okay, I'm going to tell you some things. Then I'm going to ask you one thing. You don't answer until I get to the end. Deal." "Deal. 1. She sat down in the leather chair across from him, the same chair she had sat in 2 weeks ago when he had given her the check. "I am not leaving New York. I thought about it. I'm not. My mother is here. My life is here. I am not going to get on a plane and pretend I am someone I have never been. That is a coward's version of starting over, and I am not a coward. I have learned that about myself in the last 30 days, if nothing else. Okay. 2. I am not going to go back to waiting tables, not at Meridian, not at White Oak, not at anyone's hotel. That is not because I think I am too good for it. It is because I am not good at pretending anymore. I spent 8 years being invisible to other people, and the last 30 days you and I turned it into a job. And I cannot unlearn the job now. I cannot carry a tray through a ballroom and not see everything I see in it. It would make me a worse waitress than I used to be, and it would make me crazy besides. So I am done with that. Okay. 3. I cashed the checks. All of them. All 4 of them. You kept sending them, and I kept cashing them, and I am telling you now I cashed them. The money is in the account. I have not spent any of it other than on my mother. I am telling you this because I want to be on the record that I did not leave it for you on a table like a movie. That is not me. Okay? 4. I have been thinking about what I am good at. I made a list. Do you want to hear the list? Yes. I am good at reading rooms. I am good at remembering faces. I am good at staying calm when I should not be calm. I am good at knowing when someone is lying. I am good with women who have been through bad things. I don't know for sure, I think I am possibly going to be good at figuring out which of the girls in the catering pool I used to know need help and which are not going to take it if it is handed to them, and how to set up something for the first group that does not make them feel like it is being handed to them. Does that make sense? Yes, I want to do that. I don't know what the shape of it is yet. A fund, a foundation, something. I don't know the word. I know I want to do it, and I know I want to do it with your money because your money is not clean, and nothing I make out of it is going to make it clean. But it can do something other than buy penthouses for men who deserve to lose them. I'm going to ask you for a piece of it. I don't know how much yet. I will figure it out. I'm telling you now so you are not surprised. You can have whatever you want. Don't say that yet. That was not the one thing. Okay? 5. She took a breath. I love you. He closed his eyes. I know that is a strange thing to say in the middle of a list. I am saying it in the middle of the list on purpose. I am saying it like it is an item. I am saying it that way because I do not want you to think I have worked up to it. I have not worked up to it. I have been walking around with it for about 2 weeks. I was going to say it in the elevator on Saturday night, and then you said day 30, and I put it back in my mouth. I am saying it now, in the middle of a list, because I have discovered I am not a person who can say it in a big dramatic way, and I am not going to learn how to be that person in the next 5 minutes. So I am saying it in the middle of a list of practical matters. It is also a practical matter, okay? Okay. 6. The one thing. He opened his eyes. I want to stay. Aria, not as your employee. I am not anybody's employee anymore. I'm not going to wear the pearl again. I'm not going to stand in a ballroom and listen to anyone for you. I'm going to do my own thing with my mother's money, which is what I am calling your money from now on in my head, by the way. My mother's money, because she is the reason I have it. I'm going to do my thing and you are going to do your thing, and I am telling you up front, Lucien, I am not going to pretend I don't know what you do. I am not going to ask about every piece of it either. There is a version of me, somewhere, who refuses to be with you because of the parts of what you do that I cannot sit next to. I have met that woman in my head. I am not her. That is a thing I have decided. I am telling you I have decided it, so you understand the decision is mine, and not one you have made for me with a folder, or a check, or a bed in a facility. Is this clear? Yes? Good. So I want to stay, as a person, in your life. In whatever way we figure out how to do. I don't know the shape of that either. I do not know if I want to get married. I think I might. I think I might also not want to for a while. I don't know. I am telling you I want to stay. The rest we figure out. That is the one thing. You can answer now. He looked at her. He looked at her for long enough that she started to be afraid. Then he stood up. He walked around the desk. He did not come to her chair. He went past her, to the door, and he closed it, which he had apparently chosen to leave open because he was a grown man at his desk. Then he came back, and he got down on one knee in front of the chair, which she had not expected, which she had not asked for, which was not, she thought later, actually a proposal. It was just the only height that felt correct to him for what he was about to say, and he took her hands in his right one with the tape still on the knuckles, faintly, and he looked at her from about 10 inches away. Aria, yes, I love you. Okay. I have loved you, I think, since the balcony in March. I did not know what it was then. I was in a gray car in the rain on 63rd Street with a driver I did not care enough about to remember the name of, and I looked up at a balcony I had passed 100 times without looking, and I saw a girl crying on it, and I did not get out of the car. And I thought about you. I thought about that girl for 8 months. I could not get your face to go away. I did not know your name. I made myself find it. I told myself I was finding it because you would be useful. I knew that was a lie. I told it to myself anyway. I am telling you now because I am not going to tell you any more lies about how this started. That is how it started. I am not proud of it. I am also not sorry about it because I am looking at you and you are alive. And your mother was not alone when she died, and you are sitting in my chair telling me you want to stay. So I am not sorry. I am telling you both things. You get to decide what to do with both. Okay. Is that okay? It is okay, Lucian. Can I stand up now? Yes. He stood up. He pulled her up with him gently, by the hands. He looked at her. He was, she noticed, not perfectly calm. His hands were a little tight around hers. His mouth had a thing in it, a small pressed thing, like he was trying not to do something with it yet. And when she went up on her toes and put her mouth on his, the thing in his mouth relaxed, and his hand came up to the side of her face the way it had at the bar the first night. Warm, steady, the thumb along her jaw. And it was not the kiss from the bar, and it was not the kiss from the elevator. It was a third kiss, a quieter one. The kiss of two people who had stopped running out of time. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead on his. For the record, she said, day 30 is over. Is it? It is over. I have just ended it. I am on day 31, and day 31 I am a free woman who is, as of 90 seconds ago, doing what she wants, which right now is kissing my... She stopped. I don't have a word for you. We'll find one. Yeah, we will. What? Spring came. It always did. One morning, the trees on 142nd were still gray sticks, and the next morning, there were little green edges on the branches. And Aria noticed it at the same bodega where she had bought her mother's coffee for 6 years. And she stood in the bodega and she cried once, briefly, and the man behind the counter handed her a napkin without a word, because he had known Elena Vale, and he had apparently been waiting for the day Aria was going to need a napkin in his store. She did not move out of Manhattan. She did not move into the townhouse either. She kept the apartment on the Upper West Side for a while. Then she and Lucien rented together a 4th-floor walk-up in the West Village, because Aria wanted stairs she could climb without a doorman watching her, and because Lucien, it turned out, was willing to live in a 4th-floor walk-up if she wanted him to. He was, she discovered over the next months, willing to do most things if she wanted him to. She tried not to take advantage of this. She did, sometimes. She started the foundation in June. She named it Helena. She hired Helena as her second employee. Helena, who had gotten sober in March and had stayed sober, and who was, it turned out, the best person Aria had ever met for talking to a frightened woman who did not know yet that she was allowed to leave. They hired a third woman, a fourth, a fifth. By the end of the year, they had helped 41 women out of 41 different rooms, which was a number that meant something very specific to Aria, though she never said why to anyone except Mrs. Petrova, who understood. She married him in the spring after that. It was a small wedding. It was in a courthouse downtown, and then dinner at a restaurant in Queens that her mother had loved, where the waiter cried when Aria told him who her mother had been. She wore a dress Miriam had helped her pick out. Helena stood next to her. Mrs. Petrova stood next to Helena. Camille stood behind them, holding flowers she had brought from the Ashgrove garden, which was still there, which was still running, and which Aria visited every Sunday. She was not a Mafia wife. That was not the word for what she became. She did not go to his meetings. She did not learn the names of the men who worked for him. She did once sit at a dinner with a man who had come up from Philadelphia with a problem, and she had listened to the problem for 20 minutes. And at the end of it, she had said, very politely, I think if you do what my husband is telling you to do, you'll be all right. And the man from Philadelphia had looked at her for a long second and then had done what Lucien had told him to do, and the problem had gone away. And later in the car, Lucien had said, You've never done that before. And Aria had said, I have never needed to before. And neither of them had said anything else about it. She had a child the year after that. A girl. They named her Elena. Elena Voss was loud and stubborn and funny, and from the first week had the gray eyes of her father and the mouth of her grandmother. And she was, as far as Aria was concerned, the only thing in the world that had ever actually been free. Years later, Many years later, in a kitchen in a house that was not the townhouse and was not the walk-up, a house with a garden that Aria had finally agreed to, Elena Voss would ask her mother, at 11 years old, across a counter full of vegetables that neither of them wanted to chop, "Mom, how did you and Dad meet?" Aria would think about it for a second. She would think about a tray of glasses, a service hallway, a kiss that had cost her a job, a pearl earring in a velvet box, a closet with a folder on the floor, a staircase, a hospital bed with a window, a grave in Queens. She would look at her daughter, who had her grandmother's mouth, and she would say the true thing because she had learned, long before her daughter was born, that you owed your children the true things, even when the true things needed editing for the age of the listener. "I was a waitress," Aria would say, "and I was very tired, and I asked your father to kiss me on a night I thought was going to be the worst night of my life. And then what happened? And then it was for a few hours the worst night of my life, and then it became something else." "What?" "The night my life started." Elena would consider this. "That's a weird love story, Mom." "I know," Aria would say. "They all are, baby, when you look at them close." And she would hand her daughter a knife, and they would chop the vegetables, and outside the window the garden would be doing its slow green work, and somewhere in another room of the house a man named Lucien Voss would be laughing at something on the phone. He laughed now, sometimes, actually laughed, which had taken about 6 years, and Aria Vale, who had once counted pills in a kitchen on 142nd Street, would stand at a counter in a house that she had, in every way that mattered, built, and she would understand, not for the first time and not for the last, that the smallest decisions were sometimes the ones that changed the whole direction of a life. A kiss asked for in desperation, a yes spoken in a hallway, a word said out loud in a dark closet. The woman who had begged once to survive the week had become a woman who was simply, on an ordinary Tuesday, chopping vegetables with her daughter. That was the whole story. That had always been the whole story.